Um, all right, so I've been talking to myself. I better turn this on. Turn my sound on there. How's that? Is it better? Um, so we're gonna do more cloud native and Kubernetes today. There's really no organized structure here, so if that's what you're looking for, go someplace else. We are just learning about random topics related to the cloud native and Kubernetes that are eventually going to uh, help me get the certifications by next year. I've probably earlier than that, the CCAD, the CKA, and the CCAS. I've decided to get the certifications because they're helping to help me like exhaustively cover stuff. Also to help you, anybody out there who wants one. Most reliable, amazing cloud native professionals that I know don't have a certificate. So I'm not saying you need one. I'm that's just one of the organized ways for me to help here. It also has meant that I'm going through a lot of the cloud native documentation along the way on Kubernetes.io and places like that, and so that eventually, hopefully, I can participate on the Kubernetes team as somebody who helps clarify and create documentation and stuff like that. I feel like they need a lot of help there, and so eventually I hope to be able to do that. So for today, for this next 3 hours, I'm gonna be here on and off for 3 hours. Um are you trying to earn certification first quarter next year? Yeah. By by first or second quarter next year, I'll have all my certifications, I hope. So I got a lot to do to cover that space. People tell me the certifications are not as hard as you think they are, and blah blah blah. But I still want to go through it. I'm also being sort of delayed by uh, the fact that I wanted every time I run into something with Minikube or Kind, I want to do it right. So today I'm going to explore a couple things. First of all, I want to actually spec a rig that I can run locally without anything else. And I want to talk about what that means. Let me see if I can get to my. I have a Zettelkasten about this that covers it. I think I have it somewhere. There it is. Yep. Um, I'll just go ahead and edit this one. Actually, I could CD into that. CD. That CD. I need to fix my Z command too. I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow, but we'll see. All right, so in here. So here's the log I've just been keeping, kind of a thing. So we should probably talk about doing this, assuming we only have eight CPU and 16 gig RAM. That's the thing. So I'm going to put some points for today that I want to accomplish. Of course, some goals for today. So I want to actually spec and price a single tower with a Threadripper for Kubernetes dev. That's actually something I want to do right away because I need to figure out how much that cost is going to be. It's going to be huge. But so a couple things here. I've decided against building a physical Kubernetes cluster. And the reason for that is because we're not moving. I have all the stuff to make a cluster. So maybe I can catch up. You got the co-op job? Nice. Wizzy flu? Super cool. I don't know why he should be learning POSIX shell. POSIX shell and, bash, right? Super cool. I'm glad you got it. Great. UX design. You're doing UX design. I was doing UX design this week too for Jupyter Hub. System 76. I know that's the one I'm looking at, but there's a couple others out there. I definitely want to look at that one though. So we got a lot of feedback from the peanut gallery. This is awesome. I'm so happy to hear that you got that job. That is really great. It's really glad to hear. It's just, if you haven't been around the community for a while and you're new here, people are regularly posting, including I got my job through the stream too. So there's a lot of people that have been getting good, solid work through community associations and learning this or that trick, from others. And so I'm really happy to hear about that. I'm always willing to take a break and congratulate people who get that. If you haven't got yours yet, don't fret, don't worry, you'll find one eventually. You'll get it. So my personal immediate need here is to make a decision about the next year, how I want to pursue my learning, what kind of learning lab do I want to build, and let's go through the options really quick. So I'm great, thanks. So there's a couple of options here. We've tried the kind option. So there's a single node cluster option, right? And that would be kind or Minikube. I feel like I've exhausted those options. I've used them. There's a few things in Minikube. Well, not a few. There's lots of things in Minikube I still don't understand, but it's fine. I got burned by Minikube last week when I couldn't test kubeadm cert command, which I needed because our certs expired at work, and I wanted to learn about the command and test it out in a non, production or development environment. And so I went to go do it, and Minikube couldn't do it. So that was the first time I realized that. And then I've actually had this confirmed by other SMEs who have been working with it for a while. And they say, oh yeah, you always go through that. This is a natural process. So the natural process of evolution of learning Kubernetes seems to be, you first of all, you start. So, seems to be people do the same things. So first of all, they mess around with kind and or Minikube, right? It's a single node cluster. It's not a cluster at all. It's a pretend cluster, right? And then what? And then it depends. It's not always the very next thing, but then they want to use real, right? So then they use a real cluster. Now you can make a real cluster in a virtual machines in cloud, on-prem, or on-prem, and then there's two on-prem multi-machine, I guess, like a physical nodes, and then you have virtual nodes, virtual machines, physical machines, and virtual machines. What is that? That's more accurate. Physical machines and virtual machines, right? So I don't know which order you want to do this, but you have to do this before you can actually learn it. You can't learn Kubernetes without doing that. You have to do it. So there's just too many things there that you're going to miss if you don't do it, I'm finding. And so today and last week was centered around how much can I do it? And I'm starting to realize that an 8 CPU, 16 gig RAM system is not going to be able to do much. I don't have a new Threadripper system today, but I want to start speccing it out so I can save my dollars and find out how many things I have to sell in order to get it, including my current gaming rig. I'll just sell this rig somehow and recoup the money for it. So today I'd like to do that. I'd like to spec that out. I've decided against building a physical cluster, planning, and here's why. Planning on building a virtual local cluster. So a local virtual cluster, whatever you want to call it. And a local virtual cluster just uses virtual machines that can be, provisioned really easily through command lines and stuff, and all kinds of different tools, Terraform, Ansible, all that. But you can change the machine really easily. So let's say you want to do K3S, or you want to try Rancher, or you want to try any number of things. You can try all of these different types of operating systems to mess around with your nodes, and that is not as easy to do with physical hardware. With physical, it totally can be done. I've done it. I've got a whole huge rack outside and built out on IKEA stuff. And I'm going to be getting rid of all of that. So I just want to let everybody know why, and I'm going to just talk about that really quickly. So I'm definitely getting rid of all the physical hardware that I have saved up and kept around, including probably most of my Raspberry Pis, unless we keep them around for our projects. Here's why I'm choosing to do that. There's a lot of people, including YouTubers, who have substantial, amazing hardware systems, right? They have these, hardware physical clusters, and that's cool and all, but it takes space, it produces heat, it has to be babysat, you have to buy a UPS, and it's expensive. I mean, it's expensive. Even the Raspberry Pi ones are expensive. So at that point, I'm like, well, what is the goal here? What is the goal? What is the goal for me having my own cluster, right? Why would I personally want my own cluster? Would I want my cluster to be running 24/7 and scanning out security flaws on the internet? That might be a reason, right? Would I want my cluster to be something that I can reprovision in any sort of way and create different orchestration methods? Could it be something that I could try Nomad on and get rid of Kubernetes, and just decide, okay, today I'm going to take all 16, virtual nodes. I'm going to deploy Nomad on it just to see how it works. Consider doing that on a physical cluster for a second. Okay. If you were going to try to test out Nomad on the same nodes, which you could technically do at the same time, but that's not a true test, then, you can't wipe those machines and reimage them quickly. You can do it, but it's not quickly, right? Now, people would say, well, you could do network boot, blah, blah, blah. There's lots of ways to do it, but they are all slow. Every single one of those ways of doing it is slow. And usually so my primary purpose for having a local lab, a local cluster, a local, multiple nodes to build out, my primary purpose is for developing software, testing production stuff at work that I need to test offline and need to do locally. That I'm never ever going to put proprietary stuff on my system. That's just not what I do. But I will test out things that are not proprietary in a sort of generic way and see if they work and get work that out, and then I'll copy that stuff over and make it proprietary when I apply it to work. And I think that's an acceptable solution. So that's the reason I'm going to build a cluster. So my clusters, I need to be able to pull them up really quickly. I've really gotten used to the convenience of Minikube, because with Minikube, you can just run it and boom, you can have a new cluster kind. You can run a different cluster anytime. You can modify your cluster, but what you can't do is you can't modify the underlying infrastructure. And if you're going to call yourself an infrastructure engineer, you should be able to deal with infrastructure. You should have a sense of how do I redeploy these 20 machines in this different way, or how do I deploy these. I mean, if you have a big enough system, and there's not virtual, you have enough cores, and so I'm talking about Threadripper. You could deploy an entire medium, small sized business that has all of these things built into it. GPU workstations. Ooh, nice. I'll have to go look at that as well. Give me a second. So that's the end of me justifying where the direction is going. The other main reason for this too is that do you need a Threadripper though? Or would be Ryzen 5 be enough? That's 16 cores, 32. No, I want more than 32 cores. I'm going to be shooting for more than 32 actual physical cores, because that's what's required to do it. So it's going to be expensive. I need to go. I'm a little worried about looking at it. But before we get into the pricing and comparison, consider this. Okay, so one of the reasons I'm doing this is because I'm currently living in an apartment, and now I found out it's going to be here. We're going to be here for at least a year, probably two, in this kind of limbo state in the apartment, because my wife just got this really kick-ass, awesome studio space with a very elite studio provider downtown in Charlotte, and we're not going anywhere. I mean, this is way better than her going to an elite grad school or anything. So we're not moving, and we're also not going to move into a bigger home right now. So we're kind of in this limbo space for at least 2 years, and that means that I don't have the power and the space to run a rack and, to build a rack, not let alone the money to do it right. I was looking at, putting, really glass doors, getting, 1U units and maybe all of that stuff. And I don't need to do any of that now. If I can take all the money that I would have put into a pretty awesome rack, right? And I can take that extra money and I can soak it into a really amazing single tower that's portable. that I could even potentially, ship someplace if I needed to. So like if I needed to move to someplace else, or let's say I wanted to work, in Utah for a while I'm hanging out with my kids, I could ship the tower, the 64 core or whatever. I could ship that to the locations, set up if I needed to. And then, but I really don't need to, because I can use SSH and I can just SSH into the thing. And then there's just a single point of, login that I can log into my local server. And it's the same as having a tower. It's the same as having a small tower. I mean, not a tower, a small rack. It's the same as having a small rack, except for, it's probably going to be less heat. It's less power. It's portable, allows me to reconfigure however I want. And something that probably other people don't care about, but it allows me to stream it all. So because I'm going to be doing all this work on the same system that I'm streaming from, you'll be able to see me provision things on the same system without having an extra SSH hop to go do all that kind of thing. So those are the reasons that I'm actively pursuing a high performance tower, multi-core tower, over a rack with multiple physical systems in it, even though I have tons of leftover physical systems, which I'm just going to be liquidating. A lot of gaming systems too, by the way. So I'm just going to be liquidating all that on eBay and everything, and reduce the size. It'll help us with our move, and then the machine that I have should be able to do a lot more processing. It might even help out OBS, who knows. So going into that, the first thing I want to do is I need to start getting a sense of what is the minimum system I need to emulate as much as I want. And I was super hoping that an 8-core CPU with 16 gigabyte RAM was going to do it. This is something I still want to do today. So as we're preparing this, as we're going through this, I don't just want to make, experience and tutorials and stuff about, you have to have a 64 core, System 76 machine in order to even participate in these tutorials. I don't want to do that either. Right. So I actually, how's it going now? So what I'll be doing is I'm going to be, at the same time that I'm focused on, getting a bigger system for the actual work that I'm going to be doing, I'm also going to be focused on, what's the minimum to do this without Minikube or Kind, right? And I think I'm right at the cusp of being the least possible thing. I am going to be lucky to get 3 VMs out of this. I probably will only be able to pull out 2 VMs from this. And so, but the reason I'm talking about that is because today is one of these days so first I'm going to go look at the Threadripper stuff, and then I kind of want to identify what is the most I can run on this stream. In other words, what's the minimum CPU required? What's the minimum system requirements to build a truly useful, real Kubernetes cluster using virtual machines? That to me, that is the holy grail. To me, that's the holy grail, because most people will be more affordable to them than building out their own hardware rack, right? Or even Raspberry Pis. So I'm going to hope that we're going to be able to do all of this on an 8 CPU system. I have a feeling though that this is going to be the breakdown. I have a feeling that 16 gig of RAM is going to be the limitation. I think we're going to have 8 CPUs and 32 gigs of RAM instead of 16. I think this is really going to be a limiter factor. And I talked to a couple other people, and they said, unsolicited, they said their main limiter was the RAM. They said the RAM was a real big thing. So I don't know. I'll have to see how easy it is to upgrade RAM in this guy. Probably not much, not hard. Going to be bound to ask your thought on how this was going to be bound. Yeah. So I think that this RAM right here is going to be the issue. So you have to have, first of all, you can't use swap. So in order to do all of this stuff that I'm trying to do, you have to disable swap on the host system and on all of the virtual systems. You have to do that. So you need to otherwise you can't do it. You can't even run kubeadm or any of this stuff. And it will tell you so. So that means you definitely have to have, if you don't have enough RAM, you turn swap off, that's just a disaster waiting to happen. I mean, because you're going to max it out, it's going to crash your thing. So, but I mean, Kubernetes is supposed to protect us from, memory pressure, etc. So yeah, I have a feeling that this is going to really be the limiter. And I think that, okay, so you have to have 2 CPUs per, and we're not talking about threads. I'm pretty sure it's actual physical CPUs, cores, right? So we're gonna have 2 cores per 2 cores per VM. So that's 2, 4, 6, right? So that means the rest of my OS, including all the streaming, would have to run on 2 cores. I don't know if it can do that. I don't know, but I think it's more of an issue for RAM. Are we gonna go to cities? Hey, no problem. It does cut off kind of early because we get into networking stuff, but hopefully that'll help you. I am going to continue working on that this weekend some more. Now that we have the badges idea, in case somebody wants to know, the beginner boost is changing from days to badges, and I'm writing up the badges like merit badges and scouts. And so that's if you're wondering what I'm doing on that front, that's what's up. That's why there's missing stuff. That way, if you don't want to get the Vim script merit badge, you don't have to. You can get Vim, the Vim merit badge, or Vim, what is it, Vim Basics, which is just the basics, right? Pre-watching. Yeah, if you are, I do swear and stuff in there, just letting you know. Because I try not to, but it's just part of me. I am. So, that might not be good. Use a real cluster. Okay, so let's have some fun here. Let's actually go. I don't use a capture card. No, I've thought about I have a capture card. I've thought about using a capture card going forward because that would help me with my and I haven't ever set it up. So yeah, I'm probably going to set up a capture card so that my OBS doesn't have so many constraints. I'll still run OBS from the same system, but I'm going to use a capture card to provide all of the processing and crunching and everything, so that I can just list it as a video source and it won't have to do any of the extra stuff. And hopefully that'll be relatively easy to do. But I do have a capture card. I don't know if it's high enough resolution though to cover some of the other stuff. We'll have to go see. It's not an actual card. It's an external card. So, but yeah, that's all. That's not directly related to the Kubernetes cluster, but yeah. I've been trying to run a capture card on Linux. Well, here's the thing. The capture card I have is external. So, because I didn't want to try it with the Linux thing. So, as I understand it, and I haven't got this to work yet, but as I understand it, you can have an independent capture card, which lives as its own device, and you can funnel that. You can plug that into your computer, and that becomes a monitor, just like anything else. It becomes a monitor source, right? So, and then you just loop everything back so that OBS, everything your computer itself isn't doing any work at all. It's sending this stuff. It's sending this stuff to the card, and then the card does all the processing, and then the card pulls back and it shows you what you're seeing. So your computer is not doing any manipulation of this. So I think the way to do that is you have to kind of set the card up in between your connection, aka take out one of the Pis for cheap. Yeah, as a capture card, possibly as well. Yeah, but I don't know. We're gonna see. I haven't played around with any of that stuff yet. I have it all. I have all the capture card stuff. I was getting ready to do it. Now that I'm doing like what do I want to say? So I've been doing the Witcher stuff, right? And that stuff raw goes to card encodes, and code back to PC goes to Twitch. Yes, that's what I'm doing. Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, the card encodes. So I think what that means is you plug your monitor into the card, and then you plug your card into your PC, the monitor out, and then the monitor gets plugged into the card, so that anything that comes on that monitor that you see goes into the card. And then you loop back the card as a secondary input source into the PC that looks like it's another video source. And then that video source goes to OBS. So that's So all the processing for everything is actually happening externally to your machine. Your machine's not doing anything. And that's how I think they get around that. I think you can get around all kinds of things if you do that. I think we're going to be able to get around screen tearing and stuff too, which is good because OBS uses the Nvidia driver and when it's doing that. I think it's one of the reasons it's getting screen tearing. Anyway, so that particular system doesn't require any sort of Linux drivers or anything. I'll just have to feed it into my system as a video source. You have a data path capture card which provides Linux drivers. It's pretty neat. Cool. I'll have to look at that one. All right, so let's look at the Threadripper. I'm going to limit our time here. Let's give ourselves Pomo duration. I'm going to say I'm going to spend not more than 30 minutes looking for machines because of reasons. And 25 is fine. All right, so now all of you guys who have all of your screen your suggestions, please let me know. GPU, what is this one? Open link a new tab. Yeah, GPU workstation built for deep learning. See, this is another thing too. Is I do want to get into TensorFlow and I want to be able to have multiple GPUs, but I also want Threadripper stuff. Yeah, it's from 5,000. I'm thinking that the cost on this is going to be pretty high, but it's still going to be lower than a tower. I mean, than a rack. So GPU workstation. Server from, let's see. I don't know that I need a really great GPU in it, though, to tell you the truth. I don't know that I'm going to need that. Hey, thank you for the gifting. I feel like that would be overkill. I mean, it's a beautiful machine, but oh my God, you just gave out 5 of them, 5 tier 1 subs. Nikes, thank you for that, anonymous gifter. Appreciate that. So we just had a ton of new subs come in. That was really kind. Thank you. All right, so GPU workstation built for deep learning. I mean, so here's, okay, let's take a step back here. So I'm trying to decide if I want to get into machine learning later. And the truth of the matter is, if I do want to get into machine learning at some point, I only need one GPU for me, right? Now, I maintain systems that got multiple GPUs, but this is another reason that I want to put this on my own system that happens to be a gaming system as well, because I don't know how much of the GPU I can allocate. I might have to put an extra GPU in there even to be able to do any of that. But if I want to be able to emulate a high performance machine learning Kubernetes cluster, which is the thing I'm responsible for maintaining, then I've got to be able to put GPUs in there that I can schedule for stuff. The problem with that is the GPUs are expensive. Having an extra GPU just sit around unused in addition to the one that's driving all your graphics is not something that I probably want to do. Yeah. So I'm sort of looking at high performance gaming systems that also have lots of CPUs, because then it's like killing a whole bunch of birds at once. You know, I hate that. I hate that analogy. Someone give me a new one. But you know what I mean? So the one, there's the System 76 one, which I've been lusting after forever. This is, I mean, everybody's lusting after this guy. I mean, come on. I'm definitely going to get Nvidia graphics because of CUDA, but can it run Crisis? Thelio Major. Yeah, there it is. Compile and render without breaking project time. Does TensorFlow work better on gaming GPU or science GPU? I don't know. GTX or Quadro? I have no idea. That's something. That's a question. There's a lot of data science people that I could ask that question to. In fact, I gotta answer something for a second here. Yeah. I'm still at work, so. Work they give us Friday afternoons to do education stuff, so. Yep. Actually get a list of the tags. Yep. Actually get a list of all the tags on your phone. All right, so yeah, I thought that was something else too. I gotta just switch back over for a second. All right, so the Thelo Major is probably, that's the one I'm most interested in right now. There's the Mira. This is the one. This is like the really crazy big one. It's got Ryzen CPUs, 64 gig of RAM, 48 terabytes of storage, extremely versatile. Tech specs. I can't believe how cheap this thing is. How did they get the price down that far? How did they do that? Ubuntu LTS, 4th Gen AMD Ryzen CPUs. Depending on GPU selection, Radeon graphics. Can't do that. I can't do in Radeon graphics. I can't because I need Nvidia for CUDA. It's a base model. I think you're probably right. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's try to, can we put Nvidia GPU in it? I know you guys can hate on Nvidia all you want. They still own machine learning. I don't like that that's true, but it is. It's just true. I would never do that. Those big monitors, I don't like those. Anyway. Base AMD Advanced, starting at 6 cores. What does that even mean, advanced? Now configuring your Theo. Advanced. Define your style. Red. Should we get a red one? Works. I hate them. I don't like them. Because I would rather look up than this. I would rather do this. I don't like having my head like stuck over here all day. I like just like moving my eyes up and down. And if I can do that, I mean, stacking 2 of them on top of each other might be worth doing. I might try that. But yeah. Oh, how's it going? 76 laptops are actually laptops. Yeah, I hated I bought a 1st gen laptop from System 76 in 2013, 2014. And it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. I had to give it back and they charged me $70 to restock. I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Really? So I'm not married to System 76. I don't think they're like, perfect or whatever. Full disk encryption. It's funny. I probably am going to opt for this particular system to not have full disk encryption. And you're going to laugh at me, but I don't store anything on disk that's not already encrypted that I care about. It's a true story. True story. So I actually don't need full disk encryption. I understand why it exists. Most people should have it, especially if you have a laptop. But for a tower system that's running in my house all the time, that has nothing of any value unencrypted on disk, I probably won't do that. The most I do is I'll put like a application token or something, but even that I want to work on getting that encrypted. This idea of like having all these systems make up for shitty applications that store stuff in the clear text is a problem to me. So I probably wouldn't do that. You got a laptop right now, I'd probably go with something for framework. I don't know about framework. I'll have to go look at that. 6 cores. Fuck no. Yeah. Yeah, no, I want more. I want all the cores. I want all the cores. I know you have a 64. There it is. Oh, that's memory. I think it's more of memory constrained. I want 32 cores. Do they not have a 32 core? I could have swore they had a 32 core. I swear I saw them have a 32 core. Dual channel ESC DDR4, yeah. You're in the normal theme, am I? Okay. Help me find the right one. Yep. Let's go see here. Desktops. Oh, here it is. Yeah. This is what I'm talking about right here. Yeah, this is the one I'm talking about. The major. They have a bigger one now? Holy shit. Look at that. Oh, it's on sale too. It's fucking on sale. You gotta be kidding me. 4 GPUs if I wanted to add them? Shit. Mega. Why is this one on sale? Let's give you a massive. This is crazy. Is that just the board? No. Okay, so we got the major, the mega. This is what I was thinking I was going to be paying. I was going to be happy if I could get it under $5,000, because yeah, you're basically buying an entire rack. So is Xeon? Oh, it's not Threadripper. No, I want Threadripper. I should probably not care. The mega though, goddamn. I gotta look at this. This is what I really want. I don't know where I'm gonna grab the money to this. There's no way I could pull this much money up right now. This is a lot of money. I mean, I maybe in a year, but we can see. Yeah, 88 terabytes. How will I ever store my dog files in such minimal space? Terabytes. This is like, seriously, this is like a small company tower. I mean, rack right here. So we say NVMe storage. Shit, it's all solid state storage too. Yeah, easy memory, multi-core thread per CPU. What? No, we need more. It's already that much without any more cores. Shit. Classic walnut. YOLO, I know. Operating system. It's so. No. 64 cores. That's what I'm looking for. Plus $3,000. It's only 10 grand. I mean, this costs more than 3 cars of my first cars that I bought. I'm pricing out multi-core systems so that I can start doing actual Kubernetes work with virtual machines. Need to get 50 SSDs in a nested RAID. Yeah. The RAM too. I mean, this is like the RAM's, that's actually not too bad. The problem with this is the base price. The base price is $7 grand. So that's like way more than I need. Oh my God. You're not going to get some hardware provisioned at work for you to test on? Nope. Because then I have to log into work. And I want to be able to do this testing and reconfigure. Here's what I can't do at work. And frankly, there's no plan to ever be able to do this at work. I want to be able to reprovision a cluster on a dime in an instant. And we don't have access to do that. They're working on it. They're working on getting GCP and all that stuff set up so people can actually do that kind of thing when they want to provision their own clusters. But they haven't worked out the accounting and everything. And the idea that a lowly support engineer like me could have access to reconfigure a cluster any way I wanted to and build it on any different virtual platform that I wanted to is completely outside of the realm of realism. So if I'm going to truly be kind of a cloud native engineer going forward, like for the next 5 to 10 years, I want a system that I can really put through the paces and test multiple different configurations, with different control planes. And I want to be able to simulate at least 2 head nodes. And so let's do the math on that. All right. So to get a true simulation of a cluster, from what I understand, true simulated cluster. So we need at least one system for the control plane, and that's kind of light. One machine, one VM, let's see, for the control plane. I mean, you probably should have 2 VMs for the control plane if you're going to do a real big one. And feature 96 cores. Oh my god. So we need 1 VM. We need, let's see, control plane 1 VM. I'm going to say, and then we're going to say head nodes. I want to have 2 different head nodes, and I know that seems like a lot. That's 2 VMs, right? And then I want to have, of course, you got to have, I think we should have at least 2 worker nodes per head node, which is 4 worker nodes. So worker nodes, and the worker nodes, so that would be 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 4 VMs for that. I mean, this is a pretty, I mean, let's give 2 to the control plane. 2 VMs to the control plane, assuming we have, I don't know, maybe we've got a, cloud controller manager that's separate, or etcd is separate or something. I don't know. So let's say we have 2 machines to put all the control plane on. We have 2 head nodes to simulate having more than 1 head node. And that's important because reasons. I mean, if you want to do a Kubernetes deployment, you should probably have multiple layers, and you can just have worker nodes, but that's not typical. So, and then I want at least 2 VMs per 2 machines, 2 worker nodes per head node. And so that's going to put me back 4, 5, 6. So that's 6 total VMs. So yeah, 6 total VMs. And that would be times 2 gig of RAM. So let's see, it's 2 cores, 2 CPUs, not core, 2 CPUs each for, that would be 12, right? So, and then we need to get, they said like 4 gigabytes per RAM per node, and I still think that's light. I think RAM, that's probably light. So if we were able to get it 6, let's get generous here, particularly for the control planes. So if we gave everybody 6 gig of RAM, that would be 6 times 6 is 36 gigabytes of RAM, right? So, I mean, that's kind of high, but whatever. So that 6 times, would that really be that much? I guess it would be 36. That's a lot. 36 gigabytes of RAM, 12 core, 12 CPUs, 12 CPUs and 36 gigabytes of RAM. So that's really all I need, and that's get a cheap refurbished HP deal. I've thought about doing that actually, but the problem is can I have it? It needs to have a GPU, decent a GPU for gaming / streaming, and then it has, so that's the control plane. So let's assume, well, let's put that down here. Decent GPU for ML job testing. And I'm going to put Nvidia GPU, because all of the jobs are all TensorFlow, and TensorFlow requires CUDA. So unless something's changed, no, I'm building a home server, thinking about it. Yeah. 20 CPU Xeon cores. Yeah. Well, we just saw the Xeon cores are not like, I don't know if I actually need Xeon cores or Threadripper cores. Is ECC? I don't think ECC is necessary. I still, we have to figure out how to do the PVC for this, and I don't know how, so we need to look at that. So, okay. So this is in addition to everything to just run the machine as a workstation. So this is something that I'm doing. I'm combining the workstation, my streaming station, with my, virtual machine space into a single system so that I can stream from the same box that's got the multiple cores on it. Because I want to be able to show all of those things, and I won't ever be doing anything there that would not be streamable. So if I were to do that, I would build a hardware cluster and have that do all of that work. So, hey, Anonymous Cheer, thank you. So if I wanted to have a decent gaming system on top of that, I should probably have at least 6 cores free. So I'm going to put 6 CPUs unallocated. Now, I've been going back and forth. I don't know if you noticed this, but like when I go to play a game at night or something like that, I'll turn off Minikube. I'll turn my whole cluster off. I'll just stop it and freeze it. It's another great thing about virtual machines is you can freeze them and stop them and then use all those cores for something else while you're gaming at night or something. If I was doing it on hardware, you can't do that. You can't reallocate the resources in that way. So part of me thinks, though, that I should still have 6 CPUs available. We should at least have 4, right? We should have 4 CPUs for the system, the base system, without having any of them allocated. So, and I still want to have, you know what? No, I don't want to lose performance. So like right now I'm running on an 8-core system. So I'm going to put 6 CPUs, and I should definitely have at least 16 gig of RAM, just for the base system. This is just for the base system. This is not, and a GPU, right? I don't know if you can actually use your rendering GPU for machine learning and allocate a GPU to a virtual machine. I know they have GPU Passthrough, so I'm assuming I could use a GPU Passthrough for that, but I don't know that. So it might be, but I'd have to have cash to burn to buy a GPU and just have it there to be mounted into my virtual machine on occasion to do, CUDA stuff. So I don't know if I want to blow that kind of money on that. Told to do this on a single computer on a single tower / workstation. So I would need, you're sharing GPUs for gaming simultaneously? Interesting. I wasn't sure that was possible. Mine Ethereum when you're not using it. Exactly. I hadn't thought about that. You definitely could. It might get hot in here, but yeah. GPUs are still expensive too. Yeah, they really are. My Linux firmware updates. That's so cool. I do like that about it. I really do. Yeah, Dell's always been really Linux friendly. There's no doubt. So we're talking, if I'm going to do this, then I need to make a spreadsheet. So that would be 18 CPUs or so. And I don't know. I don't even know how much storage I need because I don't know how much I can allocate. Actually, if this is all from the same system, PVC should be even easier too because I just have that one big machine that I can allocate. That's super cool because then I don't have to play around with an NAS of any kind, which I should probably still do. I should probably still attach an NAS just because of the hassle of dealing with network stuff so we can test like latency and the network things. So 16 is going to be, wow, 52. Yeah, 52 gigabytes of RAM. So 18 CPUs and 52 gigabytes of RAM. I really don't need 32. Why was I thinking that I need 32? Maybe because I want to simulate like a really large, but I do want to grow with it. There's no Discord. It's in the thing, but we're getting rid of Discord later, Foxy. So, yeah. It was a big scam on Discord, so we're gonna drop it. I haven't done it yet, but we're gonna drop it. So don't do stuff. All right, so let's go back to this one. This is kind of a good reality check. I actually don't need 32 CPUs. I don't. I mean, it would be nice and all, but it's not worth $7,000. You know, it's like. So let me go back here. The starting price on the Mega is not a thing. Threadripper smash all. I know. I'm staying with Threadripper. So, multi-core Threadripper 3 CPUs. So the Mega, I don't know why. I think it's must because it was ECC memory. 4 GPUs. Superior graphics power, epitome of performance. I don't understand this. Why is this one so... This is cheap. I mean, I might be okay to do this because I don't actually need a Threadripper. I know how cool Threadrippers are and everything, but I don't really need it. You know what I'm saying? Hyper-V currently, though. You sent me a link about sharing a GPU for gaming. Hyper-V, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'll have to go look at that. So... First processor, probably 6 threads. Threadrippers are cheaper than you thought. GPU slots. These both have 4 GPU slots. Yeah. And gigabytes with 1,500 gigabytes of RAM, I could store my entire modded Skyrim install on a RAM disk. You really could. So. 26 cores. No, how many cores did I say I needed? I need 18 cores. There we go, 18 cores. That's, now we're getting reasonable here, right? This is not unreasonable. It's expensive. It's still $5,000, but I was shooting for around $5,000 or $6,000 for this. But we're talking about replacing all the hardware from a tower, from a rack, instead of with this. I mean, one rack is like $300, right? So, for CPU memory, the memory is going to take it up a notch. I was afraid of this. This is gonna be crazy. I don't think I want to screw around with RAM. I don't. So, that's not too much though. That's still. My bad. I'm late to the party. We'll be used to the server. It's going to be just running here. I'm going to be doing infrastructure deployment and Kubernetes modeling and testing and all that. It's not doing any Bitcoin or anything like that. But I do want it to have at least the capability of multiple GPUs, so I can do GPU HPC machine learning jobs or simulate those jobs, because that's I support an HPC ML Kubernetes cluster right now, so that's all they run on there. And they have, we have systems that got 256 cores. It's crazy. And multiple GPUs, and they have GPU affinity and everything. It's just so fucking awesome. Being able to get anywhere close to doing that. You're making me want to upgrade my home lab, and it runs fine. What is your home lab, if you don't mind me asking? I want to do a home lab that's entirely virtual, though. That's a recent decision. Because we're not moving, because it's more portable, because I don't have to deal with the power, a million reasons. It's going to be less to move. So I'm going to stay 100% virtual with my lab. And it will also be the same system that I stream from. So that's why I can justify this. It's funny because almost exactly 2 years ago, I bought this gaming system from Best Buy to be able to stream while also using VirtualBox. And it has done fantastic things for me for now. For it's been able to handle it pretty well. Playing the Witcher stuff, it kind of doesn't like. OBS doesn't like it, but we work around that. Reduce AI bottlenecks, keeping that thins 100% virtual as well. Yeah, well, and it's interesting you said that, Foxy, because if we start to reduce the bottlenecks for virtual for networking stuff, I've actually heard several people say that network performance is actually faster between virtual machines on separate hardware than they are even using the stack of the hardware itself on the underlying OS. And I was like, what? It was a network engineer who told me that. So I'm a little concerned though, because if I don't, I want it to be real. Like I don't want the virtualization to cause performance to be to be unnecessarily good, because then I might get a false sense of it, right? Particularly if I start doing, so I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I need to start modeling things like, GPFS latency and NFS latency, because those are issues at work. How much of your stuff is actually using network attached storage versus, just other stuff. So, but I still think the convenience of having it is like far outweighs. Not to mention the fact that I can fire up a Windows machine at any time and hack it. That's another thing I want to do. So another thing I want to do is I want to be able to do system fuzzing against Windows to find bugs in the core OS and do 0-day, examination, stuff like that. And that's all stuff that uses virtual machines as well. So all of my interests kind of align behind, a multi-core, virtual server enabled tower as opposed to separate machines and stuff. Other than scanning. So what I would do is I would actually probably still have this system do a ton of scanning, and I would, because I have a pretty big pipes there, and I would just do that while I'm running fishies and stuff. I would do the scanning in the background. The problem is that stuff technically I could accidentally show it on stream. I don't know how much security scanning and discovery I would do on stream, because I would just be giving over bounties to everybody else. But, I don't mind. If I ever get there, there's so much other stuff I have to do before I start doing that kind of thing again. So, but if I do this particular path, it keeps that window open for later. If you're in Linux, there's queuing discipline that allows you to simulate packet loss, among other things. Yes, that's right. I forgot about that. No, we talked about Raspberry Pi clusters, and no, the answer is no. So I know I once upon a time I was a big fan of Raspberry Pi clusters and setting up on hardware real situations and doing network attached, network booting and all that stuff. Not anymore. I'm not interested in it anymore because it doesn't meet my core needs. First of all, it takes forever to image a Raspberry Pi. Secondly, it's not an OS that I would ever be using in production. So I can't do things like log into it and test whether I'm running out of RLog. Some of the things you're saying, but it's not a true emulated environment. Even with virtual machines, it's better than a Raspberry Pi network because you're not getting, not only that, but I can't test other configuration. I can't test other infrastructure. So I want to be able to push a button or run a script and change my internal infrastructure into emulating a 3D rendering, studio that's just running Nomad. And then I want to be able to push another button and have it take that one down and re-emulate my local work environment, which has got, the same head nodes. Maybe I'm using the same, naming system or something. And they're all running Red Hat, right? So, because that's what we have. Maybe I have another client and I want to be able to emulate that client who's running, K3S. Maybe I want to play around with edge computing and I want to see what would happen if I put K3OS on these things and start to do that. So I want to be able to turnkey on multiple different cluster configurations at the drop of a hat for testing different infrastructure deployments, not necessarily different, learning Kubernetes. So this is bigger, and VMs have always been the way to do that. VMs have always been the way to do that. If you're a network engineer and you don't know how to use VMs, you're screwed, because that's how you do a lot of the network. There's Cisco tools to help you and stuff, but if you gotta be able to set that up. So yeah, the VM part is important, not just for the cluster, but for a lot of, and it was actually Minikube who got me thinking along the lines of VMs from the first place. Even though Taniwa said, "Why don't you just do virtual machines?" And I was like, "Well, they're slow and clunky and blah blah." But in this case, I'm not. This is not me anticipating how I'm going to teach somebody else to do it. This is me setting up an environment for this kind of thing. There's kind of two separate efforts going on here. One of them is, what is the minimum hardware or virtual approach that I can teach somebody else and recommend that they do on their own? And then there's, what am I going to do with my budget for my needs? And they're not the same, because I'm going to be spending $6,000 on this or so, probably. Because it's, again, I know that seems like a lot of money, and it is, but when you consider that cost compared to running a true hardware rack with all the same capabilities with multiple systems on there, even if they're like tiny systems or you got a Raspberry Pi rack or something like that, you're talking comparable price at that point, right? Particularly if you are going to allocate space in your house for it, and which is all the stuff I was planning. So it might seem steep, $5,000-6,000 might seem steep for this particular setup, but at the end of the day, it's not, because the plan before this, when we were moving into the house, is I was going to set up a server room and I was going to have rack space in there. In fact, in order to justify the cost, I was starting to consider putting that downtown and having a separate office so that I could provide hosting services for the internet and, use the same systems to host in this town, which doesn't have a lot of IT in it. So I was going to maybe run my own internet service provider. I actually helped to start an internet service provider in 94, 95. And so I was thinking about, and I worked for another one after that, that we sold out to someplace. But so I've thought about, since it's a small town, I thought, well, hey, maybe we could just do all this hardware and I could spec all the hardware and build out an actual, point of presence server ISP location down there. And, allow them to do all their connecting in and everything. But these days nobody uses your mom and pop shop. They would maybe use, on-prem hosting, but nobody does that anymore, because I'm not going to be on the backbone. A million reasons somebody would want to go with a cloud provider for that. And, so that has pretty much torpedoed any of my kind of old school thinking about building out, building out hardware. I still love working with hardware, and I probably will keep some stuff around, but, do you think ARM server clusters in general with Apple's architecture, future 32, 64 core M1 chips would eventually be viable? I do. Yeah. I absolutely think that's true. I think that's going to happen. In fact, the way things are scaling. So, what's the difference between 8 Raspberry Pis in a physical cluster and 8 M1 cores in an Apple or any system that's running ARM servers? So we're going to see the number of CPUs go up and up and up, and we're going to see more and more on-prem or even local applications of cloud-native technology in order to just run anything, because we've already hit the limits in vertical scaling. So now we have to scale sideways, which means really low power. The M1s and all the ARM stuff is so low power and such a great advance that being able to put lots of those out there. Most of the microservices that are running do not require a lot of power. And when they do require power and energy, they want the GPU. They could give a shit about the CPU. Most of them, at least in our environment. So I think there's going to be a massive growth in over 32 core systems now that we have cheaper chips. And it's just a matter of time. We haven't started to see them yet, but that's, it used to be you would pay $6,000 for a Macintosh computer. I remember this in the 90s, and because it was so, you got your dad's 10-year-old Mac Mini, fit it with 12 gig off RAM, have my own home server rigged. That's nice. That's cool. Yeah, I have a lot of that too. I have a lot of old Mac Minis. They make fantastic home servers. Yeah, because they're just enough for SSH servers and going into them. And I still have all mine. I have my whole cluster out in the other room. It's not a cluster. It's just a bunch of servers. But you put Alpine on it? Hell yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's great. Thanks for the sub. Go ahead and make that official. Thank you. Long time follower. Now subbing. Use your Prime sub and you don't have to pay anything. So yeah, I really think that this is the future. So, it's still expensive to buy multi-cores. I think Threadripper is the way things are going to go, but we're going to start seeing cards like the Threadripper that are ARM based. And I don't think there is one yet. Does anybody know of one? God, that would be so cool. The other problem right now with the ARM stuff, let me just say it, is that there's not a lot of containers that are written for the ARM architecture. Yeah. And so that's one of the things that sucks about containerization so far, being kind of a noob to this, is that, it doesn't have PCIe lines. I did not know that. I don't have any NAS recommendations. A lot of friends have been telling me, but I'm going to hold off on that. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. I think that we're a long way from having ARM take over from x86, x60, whatever you want to call it, because AMD C4. Because here's why. There's too much software written for AMD 64 right now, and that means all those containers would have to be rewritten and recompiled. x86 64, right? So, it's going to take time, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen just because the price point's so low. It'll eventually happen, but right now, all the pre-existing software and containers have been written for x86 64, and they can't even get rid of was it the 386 stuff, 32-bit systems. Did you see when Mint tried to drop support for 32-bit? That happened like a year and a half ago. It was hilarious. It was hilarious. They announced on their page, it said no more support. The next release we're have no more 32-bit support whatsoever. We're not even going to post it on our site. And they tried to drop 32-bit support because they thought nobody uses this anymore. So they tried to drop it from Mint's page. They dropped their images and everything. And they got totally attacked. Everyone was like, "What are you doing? We've got old systems that I'm running us on it." It's kind of funny, actually. And then they had to regroup and oh fuck, we got to support 32. So I mean, if we're still that way with 32-bit architectures, there's going to be AMD around for a very long time. To restore them, what was their logic? I don't know what their logic is. 32-bit. If you can put a 32-bit OS, it actually runs much more efficiently on some smaller devices, even ones that will run 64-bit. So there's a lot of real compelling reasons to use 32-bit, and they got rid of it. They're like, "What are you doing?" It was funny. I might have the story wrong somehow. I'm sorry, but you can go research it if you want. That's how I remember it anyway. God knows my memory's bad. But walnut, birch, dark matter, no. I think this is doable. This is using the Xeon scalables. This is because I'm using the Intel Xeon scalable processors for cores. How much is that for Threadripper? Probably a lot more. How's it going, OreoBite? Alpine is ready. Is need to install Bash from Git? Yeah. Well, the Alpine doesn't even have any of those, right? It uses BusyBox, which is a single executable, multi-call executable. When you run VI on Alpine, you're actually running the BusyBox executable that has VI embedded in it. Same with sed, awk, all that stuff. It's pretty amazing. BusyBox is fucking amazing. I love it. I really love it. I actually made command box once I realized they were so similar. I started making I changed the name of command box. It was something else. What was it called? It was command tab, I think, and I changed the command box because it was just so cool. For CPU memory, I don't think this is required. Performance 250 gigabyte. That's not very much. I don't know how much storage I'm going to need, actually. God, storage is cheap. Storage is really cheap. 2.5 storage. Actually, that's what I need for game rights. We should probably do that. Yeah. There's like nothing. 500 gig SSD. 1 terabyte SSD for game files and stuff. Mac Pro rack mounted for our servers these days. $50K right out of our pockets. Are you kidding me? Mac Pro rack mounted on servers is $50K. With it after the cloud machine is ready to be worked on. What are you going to do with it? Well, I'm going to do anything I want to with infrastructure. When you have a machine like this, I can reconfigure all of the virtual machines on it to do whatever the hell I want. That's the great flexibility, is you can emulate any infrastructure. You could do the same thing using cloud, right? But it'll cost you. So that's another thing too. Let's talk about that in terms of cost, right? So there's nothing stopping me from provisioning all the same things and writing Terraform scripts and running it in the cloud or GCP or Google or whatever. The problem with that is that, one, it's dependent on the internet, so I can't do it locally. The really great thing about virtual stuff is that it all runs on your computer. You don't even have to have internet access. You can do all of the work without it. And, I hate dependencies on the internet. I've been burned enough by it to not like that. So, but if you did do that, if you wanted to keep a couple of different cloud configurations around and running, you'd be paying $5,000 probably over 3 years. Over 3 years, you'd probably pay about the same in cloud computing costs, depending on what you're doing. Particularly if you're doing any machine learning testing. If I want to do any like machine learning like model testing and stuff like that, that's fucking expensive in the cloud. That's expensive because it's lots of CPU GPU power. So this is one of the reasons I'm considering a heftier home system that's got enough cores for me to emulate a minimal environment setup. Brad Discord bought and earned much money without giving it a single dollar. One of the things I have thought about though is that there will be, so let's say for example, I was going to emulate Jupyter Hub. All right. So Jupyter Hub had, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter where it ran its containers, but I'm trying to think of it. When I ran Jupyter Hub, I had, how many pods did I have? 1, 2, 3. The prepolar and the other polar, that's 2 pods if I keep them. The hub, the proxy, and the proxy hub thing. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, plus the name server app spaces, 8. So I was running 8 or 9 pods at a given time. They paid $120K on MSQL licenses. That's insane. That's companies for you, man. Terraform to deploy your setup. I want to play around with all kinds of different tools for deploying my setup. Terraform, Ansible, plain old, scripts, maybe Chef even, just to see what it was like. I want the flexibility. Is it moving over to Postgres? Of course they are. I'm glad they are too. That's good. I haven't used Puppet. People have mixed feelings on it. So, but the bottom line, the reason I'm making this is because I want to practice infrastructure provisioning, which is a separate skill set from cloud native. And if you don't, that's why when I go for jobs, I'm going to apply for cloud native engineer and infrastructure engineer. I have a great job as an infrastructure engineer, but that's one of the great things about this job is that it's listed as an infrastructure engineer. So you're an infrastructure engineer who also knows cloud native things. And that's where I want to stay. I mean, that's the work I love to do. There's not a lot of report writing. I got out of the hacking thread when I realized how much most hacker jobs are just running scripts and writing reports. So I was like, I don't want that. So, use the database admin wants me to use Corn Shell. Yeah, Corn Shell's nice. Corn Shell is almost Bash. Yeah. Yeah, K-Shell. K-Shell's pretty standard. Bash is, look, just use shell check, right? Shell check knows about Corn Shell. If you put KSH as your thing and you run Corn Shell on it, it'll be fine. So I think I have the answer I wanted. We're going to be talking about probably 6K with tax and everything. No, there's not. No, people will tell you that Ash and Dash are POSIX compliant. They're absolutely not. That's a very unknown fact. Most people use it for that, but it's not. libvirt. Yeah, I thought about doing libvirt too. Have you played around with that? Yeah, everybody tells me about this a lot. Yeah. I did one sub-application for studying for the CCAD, where you can bring up a multi-node lab locally with minimal effort. Start practicing with Kung Fu. Terraform. This lab will kickstart your nodes to the point. So, sudo apt install libvirt, right? Your accounts must have access to libvirt resources. Is this using Kimu? What is it using for virtualization? Yeah, I'm just reading it here. So what is it used for virtualization? That's what I want to know. Or does it put it in the this level? Kickstart your nodes, and then clustered via Kubadium. Yeah, I actually want to do the kickstarting myself, but this is good because it like shows you how to do it. So this is really good. This is fantastic. Thank you for that link. I mean, it basically is like the solution at the back of the book you can go look at when you screwed it up and you don't know how to do it. HCL, HashiCorp configuration language. Is it QEMU? Deploy via Terraform? Okay. And QEMU runs on KVM under the hood, I understand, right? Is it either Zen or KVM? I don't know. Did I get that right? ID who I see Nano. I see Linux boxes. Explain pods back. Ooh, this looks really good. Kubadium very Ansible. Via Terraform, right? Well, so knowing how to use this, I mean, people, I don't have any opinion on Terraform yet. I hear people love it and I hear people that hate it. So I'm going to reserve judgment. I haven't done any of this, but as you can tell, my training for all of this stuff is moving out of CKAD and sort of into the CKA space. All of this talk about setting up a cluster and machines and everything is solidly in the administrator kind of area. But I'm finding you need to do it for the application stuff as well. So I'm kind of studying for all of them at once. And I'm actually, I think I'm pretty damn close to doing the CKAD. I could probably get that. I still need to go through building my own Terraform. I'm going to go through and build my own Helm chart and deploy it, which I was recently doing. I wrote a tool to do that. I modified an existing tool to do that. And that's probably another lab that I'm going to be doing after this. I want to do a lab to write a tool that deploys Helm charts with extra resources. And we have a similar script that we use here, but I kind of want to start from scratch and think about what that would look like. Practice exercises. All right, that's really cool. This is probably the one I'm going to get. But somebody said there are other systems out there that are offering. There's Dell's got a good one too, right? Again, I don't think it's going to have. Does this even come with a GPU? Second processor. Complete twice as many tests in the same amount of time. What does that mean? What? Oh, a different CPU with a different cores. Oh, whoa. So this is just how many cores are in this. It's not CPUs. That's a different. Ah, I got it. How's it going, some Sidewinder? If they ship with a GPU, yeah. The idea of having a separate slot for a core is kind of cool. God, that puts me way out of range though. Yeah, that's so much processing. Here's the thing. When stuff scales across pods, I can have multiple pods. It doesn't matter what worker node they're on as long as they meet, right? So another problem too is I think my estimate's wrong. I think I should probably give more than two cores per node. It kind of tanks the ability to do some jobs, some simulations. You know what I mean? So if I were to say head nodes, 2 VMs, we had 2 head nodes, 4 worker nodes, 2 control plane machines. So we could say, let's say we do three. I mean, it would be ideally it would be great to have 4 CPUs per worker node, because it burns up once. That'd be 16. That'd be 16 VMs. Let me redo the math here. So Yeah, I'm gonna have to go for the 32 because yeah, I don't know what my budget is. That's what I'm trying to figure out. What my budget is. I'm gonna try to do this versus a rack, and we're talking about, you know, putting the expense across a whole year because I was gonna move and get a rack and build a server room, and I was gonna set aside that money as part of the mortgage and everything. So, but I'm starting to think that I don't want to do that. So 22, so 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 total VMs, 2 CPUs each. Oh, no. This is 4 worker nodes would be 4 VMs. Yeah, 4 VMs. That's just 4 VMs. What are we talking about? Times, let's say, times 3 cores each. 2 VMs with 2 cores. The head nodes don't need to do a lot. I could probably get away with just the 1, but that's the minimum. 2 VMs for the control plane times 2 cores each. So 2, 4, 6 total VMs. I mean, I probably want more than that, but 4, 5, 6, 7 VMs. 4, 6, 8 VMs. Duh. Why am I'm looking at different numbers. I've also got CPUs. No. So 12, 16. Is that 20? So 4 is 8 plus 12 is 20. Yeah. So 20 cores, not CPUs. 60 RAM each. So that'd be 6. Wait, that's not right. It's 8. 6 times 8. All right. What even is the project? The project is making a Kubernetes lab. That's the project. So this is in addition to everything, just run the machine as a workstation. So 60 RAM in total. So this is new actually. So we need 26 cores. I went over my time. I'm over my time by 31 minutes. Shit. I didn't notice that. Thanks for the subs. Lots of subs today. Minimum. All right. So just to get you guys around, that holds 26 cores. Shopping is definitely addicting. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to take a break too. I'm stepping away from this, and then we'll get back to actually learning Kubernetes stuff. But this is going to take me some time to save up the money for this because this is a seriously big deal. That's if I'm getting 26 cores, we're talking. This is a 64 core machine. It's more important that I have a core than I have a good core like a Threadripper. The Threadripper is going to be more money, right? The first processor, 18 cores. No, I'm going to need more cores than that. God, look at how fast it jumps up in price. Are you seeing this? Shit. Okay, so I need 32 cores. I've been saying this all along. I need 32 cores. 28. Does 28 cover it? God damn. That's like, puts me... I don't think I'm going to be able to do this. Yeah, it's not a business expense, so I wish I could. And even if writing off taxes, we wouldn't pay any tax anyway. If I want this to be like a real thing, then and have to be flexible, I need a lot of cores. Look at this, non-refundable. They're like, we don't know if these cores actually work. Do you see this? This one, and this one are all non-refundable. It's like they're shit. They don't work. 2 times 16 core CPUs. Yeah, I think that might be the way to go, Polar. I think you're right. I think if we went to like a 16 core CPU, I think you're right. I think that's the way to go. And then get the second CPU, right? First CPU memory, second processor for 16 cores. This is a lot cheaper. Oh my God, look how much cheaper that is. Yeah. Polar Junction, thank you so much for saying so. So that is the key. Look at that. So we have 2 CPU slots. So this is I have 2 CPUs, each with 16 cores. That gives me my 32 cores for a fraction of the price. Look at that. That's so much lower. And these are still the stupid cheap old Xeons. But if I get the cheaper, let's look. If I'm going to get Xeons, I'm not going to get the super expensive, probably don't work as advertised ones, because they've been pushing the limits on whether it's even possible, right? So there's 16. I'm going to guess that the Intel Xeon scalable processors that have the 16 core are kind of in the, hey, we can do this. The tolerances are not as low and everything. So the hardware probably less likely to burn up and die. And even if it did, so let's say we burn out one of these processors somehow, the other processor is still there. So I'm assuming I could swap it out for a second one and it wouldn't be that expensive. This is a really good idea. I like this idea. Complete twice as many tasks in the same amount of time. Yep. And not to mention the fact that it's concurrent. It's like truly concurrent. So yeah, second CPU memory. That's funny because they don't give you many options here. Yeah. I like this a lot. God, that's only $6,000. I mean, it's a lot, but it's still the starting price for the other one was like 7,000. Like the starting price before we even for the Threadripper stuff. So that's a ton of memory. So OS drive, additional 2.5 stores. Yeah. First GPU, 192 CUDA cores. Did you see this? Oh my God. That is not a gaming. This is not a gaming one. Shit. Oh, that's gonna be hard. I'm gonna have to go look at them. That's for all the CLI gamers. Yeah, I was gonna say. What do I have? I'm not going down. My Nvidia GeForce RTX. This is an amazing card. I don't want to go less than this. Your current PC. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, I'd have to rip it out and put it in there. I might actually do that and just sell off the parts for the rest of the machine. Assuming it's compatible. I've been so burned by that in the past. I've been burned by compatibility constantly. 2060 though, I don't need a lot of high-end graphics, obviously. I mean, this does Witcher amazingly well, and it's on the low end, right? So what I could do is I could get the CUDA core GPU and keep that in there, and then take the one in my computer out. It'd be harder to sell like that, but I bet it would work. Yeah. God, you can't even get a 200 level. This is all you can get. Yeah, that's what I would do. That's exactly what I would do. because it's not worth $300 for me to upgrade to, or $1,000 just to get a 3060 for gaming and stuff. You can't even get any of the lower end ones. I love all these non-refundable ones. Second GPU, third GPU. Oh, this doesn't have an additional GPU slot. That's not good. That's not good. Yeah. That's not good. Yeah. They are because they're getting bundled with the system, right? I don't need any of this stuff. I don't need any of that. Supercube processor to run Alacrity in full screen. Yeah. No, I no. Just no. That's exactly what I would do. I would swap out this one for my gaming one. How many do I have any CUDA cores on this at all? I don't even know. This is a gaming rig, so I just bought it at Best Buy on a kind of an emergency because my other one wasn't doing the streaming anymore. So cores 2,176. Shit. Are those CUDA cores? High-end graphics card by Nvidia launched on July 9th, 2019, built on 12 nano processor based on the graphic processor, DirectX 12, ray tracing, blah, blah, blah. I like the fully unlocked GeForce edit, which uses the same GPU, but it has all of its shaders. And I think the Vulkan shaders on Linux are actually better than what I had on Windows before. Honestly, there's like a lot of differences in my Witcher that are way better than it was when I was playing it before. Shader. Oh, those are shader units. Tensor code, 272 tensor cores. 272 tensor cores, tensor/CUDA cores. That's fine. The Cardinal Slow search ratio is okay. So take my card out and put it in my new box. The end. Being a dual slot card, the Nvidia GeForce super draws power from pin connector. Yep. I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I'm ever gonna get the money out of it. So it's like, might as well just keep it to play games on or something. Yeah, I don't. I gotta walk away from this for a second because this is stressing me out. I'm gonna have to save a long time to be able to buy that, like a long time. This is the thing. This is the equivalent of buying every piece of hardware I would ever have in my lab. So people get crazy, like they build out their entire labs, right? The reason it's such a big number is because it's all in one thing, you know. Could I do that and build my own machine? Yes. And maybe that's what I need to do. Maybe I need to put my Guilfoyle hat on and build out Anton. And then just load my own stuff on it. That's probably the way to do this. I mean, I have mixed feelings about that. I've heard people come and saying, hey, they're building out, it's cheaper again. It seems like it's gone through different phases. There was a time there where if you could buy hardware, packaged hardware for a lot cheaper than you could build it. And I don't know if that's still true. So if you're going to build your own rig, you know, I would have to spec out all the individual pieces and do that. And I can do that. It actually might be fun for me to go through the hardware again and do that. But yeah, that's quite a bit more work. You buy this, you just plop it down, you start doing your stuff, right? I'm having this sensation. I mean, so another thing too is that the System 76 has been known for their high prices. They have really high prices, right? So I'm just going to try something really quick. So I'm just going to look for Threadripper gaming rigs. We might be able to luck out and get a gaming rig that is also enough, right? So, craving, it's Ryzen, Threadripper, 32 cores, 64 threads. This is exactly what I was talking about. This is a $3,000 system compared to $7,000, right? But it doesn't have 2 CPUs. I actually think that we're going to have more luck finding a gaming system that has multiple cores than the other stuff. No overclocking, RAM. So 32 gig RAM total. What did we decide on that? Yeah, I'm considering not System 76. I'm seriously thinking about not using System 76 because they're way overpriced. That is not an accurate pricing for me to start judging this on. I mean, there's going to be gaming systems that are going to be competing that are going to be a lot better. So this Threadripper, it's only, see, I think 5,000 should be the absolute maximum, but I'm going to shoot for 4. I think 5,000 should be the maximum for any computer. I would never pay more than that. And PC part picker and make something to give you a good idea. Yeah, I do need to do that as well. But let's just start looking at gaming rigs. So we can look at some of the different ones. And this is a really pretty rig. But yeah, I mean, we're looking for, I mean, I'm assuming you can bump the RAM up in here. I mean, 33 RAM is going to be the limiting factor. It really is. So 6 gig is probably high. If I dropped it down to 4 gig of RAM, it would be, no, I must have got that wrong. Oh, I did. No, wait, 6 times 8 is 48. So we could do, if we did 4 gigs of RAM for each, that would be 32. But that's not counting the RAM for the host system. So I don't know. Maybe that's too generous. It's gonna be hard to find more than 32 gig of RAM on a system. I'd have to bump the RAM up. That's the thing I'm gonna have to bump up, and that's not too expensive. Yep. Asus Prime. SSD, onboard audio. What else we got? So I'm just looking at random gaming rigs just to see if they're anywhere near the space for this. Doesn't say if it's upgradable or not. I am kind of set on the AMD Ryzen Threadripper. I want to tell you, I'm kind of set on that. I mean, I like the Xeon one too. It seems like it was a lot cheaper, but I've just heard a lot about the Threadripper. 32 core, 64 threads. Yeah. Let me be sure on this. When VMware says it needs 2 cores, it means 2 cores. It doesn't mean 3 threads, right? I mean, I'm almost positive of that, but I'm starting to question it. So, how many cores required for Kubernetes node virtual machine? Kubernetes hardware cluster recommendations. All right. All right. Overview. This document covers minimum hardware recommendations. Role minimum required. Let's see. Okay. Wait, this has got some sort of diagram in it. All right. So master node, worker node, central agent. Okay. This is what I'm talking about. So 2 gigs for the master node. Minimum required CPU cores, 1.5. What the fuck does that mean? This is cores. master components, Kubernetes core, cert updater, fluentd, kube add-on manager, reschedule network, etcd proxy, label, kubelet. All right. Master node. Master node, worker node. You need one worker node. I want to have at least 2. 700 megabytes, that's it? That's right, worker nodes don't need to do very much. I forgot about that. They don't, because it's just all pass-through shit. Oh, that's fantastic news. Okay, that's going to really, really change my spec. I should have known that. I should have known that. You don't need, it's a worker node. It just passes shit through. It doesn't care. So, yeah, I need to readjust this. You know what? I need to make a spreadsheet. I should make a spreadsheet. So I'm going to get a spreadsheet. LibreOffice Calc. Hopefully my machine won't die. Sorry, it's so bright. I know there's a theme, but I've never messed with it, so I don't know how to do it right now. I don't know where the theme stuff is. I'm so sorry. No, I really don't care. All right, so zoom in on this. Sorry, but let's say, so you got the master node. Master workers, no, head nodes. Centralized monitoring agent, that's different. Oh, that's a totally different thing. So 1 master, 2 workers, no, head. What? This doesn't make sense. Why would the worker node have so little RAM requirement? 128 gigabytes each because we deploy a ton of pods. Yeah. Worker node does what? That's what the deployed pod workloads run on. Sure. Oh, I meant the head nodes. Yeah, I completely misread this. Yep. Platform features, control plane, centralized monitor, 1.2 gig. Required CPU, centralized monitoring, centralized logging. That's the Prometheus stuff, which I do want to set up, and that's going to be on a separate, that's going to be in a totally separate machine with 2 gig. Kubernetes core components. Yeah. Platform deployment examples. Yeah, the worker nodes are going to have to be hefty. And yeah, I don't know. I'll go back to my terminal. So this is kind of right. I still want to keep 6 gig of RAM on the workers. I do, because it's that the workers are, I mean, that's where they get work done. You know, there's lots of containers on there and stuff. So yeah. I mean, I could spend a lot of time on this. I don't feel like it's wasted time though, because I'm, speccing hardware for putting a cluster is a core part of being an infrastructure engineer. So I feel like this is included in the CKA stuff. I mean, if somebody was to come to me and say, okay, help us set up a Kubernetes cluster, what would you do? Well, go do it in the cloud, or go do this or that. Or they say, no, I only have enough money for a rack. Or I just want to buy one machine and have it run all from that. I mean, they wouldn't, but if they did, what would you do, right? How much do you have to have? How much RAM does a control plane? What is a control plane? What goes on the master node, right? This is one example of that. This is not, specific. But I'm definitely in the CKA territory now. Just calculation for Prometheus. Prometheus is a pain in the ass. We've been setting this up. It's really good though, but it's a completely separate infrastructure piece. And Elasticsearch, Prometheus, Elasticsearch. This is the other thing too. They don't tell you have to know Prometheus and Elasticsearch, but You really do. You really do. It's like it's not optional technology for you to learn. You kind of need to learn it if you're going to be doing any of this cloud native stuff at any level of scale. So anything that I set up, I want to be able to have my own Elasticsearch and Prometheus running in addition to what's already running. At that point, it's starting to get like, can I do this all on a single machine? And I know that $7,000 price tag looks bad, but consider buying 5 or 6 systems and setting up network attached storage in a rack. The cost would be very similar. Hey, Taniwa. So I mean, the cost would be very similar. So that's what we're doing. Everything in real time, very cool. It sounds like a cool thing. It's just not anything I would use because I want to. I mean, it might be fun for testing it and everything. Another reason to go virtual, right? If I go virtual machine, then I can wipe the whole thing and say, hey, I want to set up a whole thing and get rid of my Prometheus or disable it, and then run net data on it and see what it gives me. So that's what a laboratory is. Having that kind of flexibility to be able to mess around in your laboratory and try different things out at scale-ish, or at least to resemble scale, using real software installation. Not, it might be virtual machines, but everything else about it is real. And to me, that's a very, very valuable thing, particularly for an engineer or an architect who wants to try different things and turn one thing off, turn another thing back on without having to reconfigure a ton of hardware. So for all those reasons, I think if you're going to make this your profession, more and more, I'm personally feeling like just getting a few Raspberry Pis ain't going to cut it. That you need to, over time, I mean, you're getting your first job, you'll be making enough money to put down a really good system with multiple cores. But I'm starting to think more than I have ever had before that's, and not just to rationalize getting a new computer. I'm perfectly happy with the one I have now. I just can't run more than 2 virtual machines on it. And I can't simulate an environment properly without that. Not in the way that I want to anyway. Minikube doesn't cover it. It's definitely an investment. But it's a lot of money. I mean, it's a lot of money. This is why so few people, I think, are trained up in these kind of things, because there's a lot of extra work involved to really understand it all. Most people don't even have access. The cloud is your lab. See, can you talk to me about your expenses doing that, Tony? Well, because I've considered that a lot. I've considered using the cloud as a lab and then just spinning things up and deploying and SSHing into here and there. I thought about doing that, but there's something about it that still rubs me the wrong way, sort of. Firstly, I mean, I don't know. I've thought about doing that. I've thought a lot about it. That's using the cloud for your lab is not only, other than the network dependency, it's the same. It's exactly the same. $100 a month for a small cluster. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, let's think about that for a second. Okay, so the way this usually goes, and I kind of traced it in my log. I've talked to a lot of people now at this point about this. This is how it goes. They start to learn Kubernetes and kind on Minikube, and then they come to realize they want a real cluster. And so then they start either building one in the cloud, GCP, Azure, whatever, and then they start using physical machines and virtual machines on top of that. I'm pretty sure I could get cloud space for free. The Azure people already talked to me about that. So, and I probably could talk to the Linode people for the stream, for the sake of the stream. But I don't know. I mean, I use DigitalOcean for everything, and I love it. I love being able to provision systems so quickly and everything. And okay, so the part of me that's hung up on that, it's less cost effective than hardware. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But it's less of a hit right away. You know what I mean? It's like, so we're sitting on this decision right now. Just kind of, we don't have to make it today, but I do want to talk about it since you mentioned it. So when you're kind of jumping into this cloud native space and you need to test out radically new things and you need perfect control over everything, you can you can build hardware, you can build it out in the cloud, or you can build it out in virtual machines on a single host machine. Those are pretty much the three main ways to do this. And time is more valuable for me, right? So the first of all, so let's speaking of time. So the physical method to do this is by far the most time consuming. And I personally believe the most expensive, even if you go the Raspberry Pi route, because the Raspberry Pi route doesn't truly represent your infrastructure. First of all, you can't even run most of your Docker containers on it that you would be running in the enterprise because they don't have ARM images. So, I mean, that's changing, but that's actually one of the main reasons that I went away from the Raspberry Pi cloud idea. I mean, if you're just looking for using kubeADM and looking at the network and dealing with all the, learning the skills and stuff, I mean, I was a big proponent of building out a Raspberry Pi cluster for Kubernetes for a long time, thinking that was the one true way to do it. I actually don't agree with that at all anymore. I've changed my position on that completely. You can't run the same client containers. You have to deal with the time to set them up. You have to re-image an entire, you can do it with SD cards and it's gonna be fast and everything, but it's not a proper simulation. Yeah. And I was just going to say for Tanya, to keep things so physical machines, unless you're going to be running something for a long time on there, they're bad for testing things out, in my opinion, because you have to rip all this stuff down and bring it back up. Even if you did a net boot, you'd have to like maintain multiple net images and stuff. It's not as easy as getting on, the whatever, the VirtualBox manager on the command line and spinning up a new virtual machine from an ISO, which you can do in seconds. I mean, that doesn't take any time at all. So if you're into re-explore, I mean, the true purpose of a lab, this is a lab. This is not a thing that's going to be up all the time. This is for me to learn, experiment, play around with, and break shit. If you want that, then you need speed. You need to be able to bring up, and that's what I like about Minikube and Kind. Obviously, you can bring up an entire environment with one command. That gets you most of the way there when it comes to development and that kind of thing. But there are some things that it doesn't cover. So, if you ever want to do anything with node related, you can't do that. For example, you set up a Squid proxy in the past to cache packages on APT. Nice. So much of the internet is not physical. Look at Azure, for example, and DigitalOcean, Droplet, or something else. Yeah, I love DigitalOcean. I'm a long time user of DigitalOcean. If you build your own lab out of VMs, you're actually closer to the real world, right? Yeah. So fire and forget to save the bandwidth. Yeah. So I actually went through this. Let me just give a brief history of how when I started SkillStack. I started in 2013. I started a company to mentor and help people learn programming specifically, and then other tech careers and stuff like that. It grew, and me streaming is like the ultimate end of that. But at the time, I had one Linux machine and I run a VirtualBox on there, and I ran VMware, which had GPU pass-through at the time, and I ran GameMaker, believe it or not, which is a Windows-only application. And my first two students, we learned how to do game development on a Linux machine. It was on one server. They got to come in and they got to sit down and work on it, and I could work with them. Eventually, they got their own laptops and they could work on stuff at home and everything. And that ran me for a while. That was pretty good. I added a whole bunch of RAM to that thing, put it on the internet, and people started SSHing into my on-prem server to do terminal-based stuff, which they never really had any kind of bandwidth constraint on that because it was pretty easy. And then we started getting off into the Minecraft world. We started doing a lot of Minecraft stuff, and Minecraft servers use a lot of RAM, and they also are really bandwidth hungry. So we started realizing that I could abandon and plus our power would go off. My power would go off for the apartment sometimes, and even the best, backup generator wouldn't do it. There was a couple times when like 16-year-olds out doing puppet shows outside in front of the cars because we couldn't do anything because our power was out, and I didn't have the money for a big generator or anything. So then we said, fine, forget this. We're going to go to, I would put backup. My router was on. I put my routers on backup power, and then, Wi-Fi laptops work. And so we went to a server, and I put all that in the server, and I paid my $10 a month, $20 a month. and it was fine. And I did the math, and it, even over 8-10 years, you bump it all the way up to 40. You're not going to touch the cost of like a $5,000 virtual machine with a Threadripper in it. It's not going to come anywhere near that kind of cost. So the cloud is a really compelling way to do it, but it's a different way to do it. There's a part of me that doesn't want to say this, but I have to say it. The cloud is more practical. It might be more expensive, but it's more practical. But more than more practical, it's more relevant. So is it true that you still have to use VirtualBox and virtual machines and all that stuff, and you should learn all that if you're a technologist? Hell yeah. You have to know what a virtual machine is and how to start one up and run Windows and all that stuff. You need to do all of that, right? Do I need to leave my nice warm and cozy, 8 CPU, 16 gig RAM system over here that plays Witcher just fine, and bump it up just so that I can have extra VMs and pay an extra $5,000 for it? Or do we incrementally build Kubernetes clusters in the cloud and we access them? Which is a more relevant skill? And to tell you the truth, as much as I still think being able to do local development and testing on a virtual machine is really valuable, but the more relevant, and this is the one I have a hard time saying because I don't like admitting it, the more relevant way to test all of this stuff is to do it in the cloud of your choice. To do it, and in my case, probably GCP, because that's what our company's moving to, really hot and heavy. I'm making no value judgment about GCP versus Azure versus AWS. That is a different decision for someone else to make. So what I'm trying to get at is, rather than spend all of this money and invest all of this for a local system, why don't I just use a cloud, and when I need to do local stuff, use my Minikube, or maybe I can get my VM thing to work that I started on last week, where I'm actually using kubeadm to set up 2 or 3 virtual machines that are running on this machine right now, until I can get a little bit of money and maybe bump up the cores a little bit, but I don't have to bump them up all the way to some insane thing, right? I just need to be able to use kubeadm on occasion. It's just basically an extension of Minikube, right? So kind, Minikube, and then, virtual machines. And then if I want anything bigger than that, so let's say, I really do want to emulate a full environment. Well, now I'm looking at Terraform and Ansible against the cloud anyway. And by the way, most of those companies that are coming to you are not going to have the infrastructure, not going to want to pay it. They're going to want to use the cloud anyway. So at that point, I feel like internally, and I've got to take a break here because I think I just talked myself out of buying this computer, because I think even though there's an extra cost involved with using the cloud, the skills you get by doing the cloud to do your testing are way, way more relevant and worth more money in the end than learning how to partition your own virtual machine up really well and use, vServer Manager. As cool as I think, the vBox Manager command line tool is for provisioning and chopping up, my own machine, it's irrelevant. I mean, it's relevant in terms of like a tester, save money. Yeah. So, but it's irrelevant. I mean, seriously, you're not going to be asked on the job. The reason I wanted to do it is because I wanted to be able to demonstrate all this stuff to y'all, but I can do that with the cloud as well, as far as I know. I mean, I did it with AWS a little bit. So I could sit here and I could stream in cloud computing, learn how to set up limits and billing. Yeah, absolutely. So the fear I have is that when we go to GCP, which I want to do for the next phase here, is that we're going to start provisioning GCP systems. The other thing that bothers me about GCP or cloud providers is that they sometimes give you more stuff than you need, and they don't let you run images that you want to set up. So for example, one of the, the cloud versus physical thing, right? So one of the problems I'm having with this cloud idea is like, can I actually use my exact ISO image to build an image? And in DigitalOcean, I have not been able to do that. You have to create an image and then you can upload the image as possible. I have to go look at it. I think they've updated since I used it last time. But at the time you couldn't. You had to pick one of their pre-configured images and that was it. You couldn't do it. And I'm pretty sure that's changed now, that you can actually, put those up in there. Yeah, it's super easy to run up the bills really quick on that. And if I were to, finance a physical machine, and so I think what I'm concluding here, and I'm kind of glad I rubber ducked this, so I'm going to go walk away for a bit. I think what I'm concluding here is that even though the cost seems higher to use cloud, it's less immediate cost. I mean, it's kind of a pay-as-you-go kind of cost. And the skills you learn for testing and sampling things in the cloud are more relevant than testing them in a local virtual machine. Because the chances of you being asked to do this and to deploy cloud infrastructure to run a Kubernetes cluster is very high. That's the number one use case for deploying Kubernetes. In fact, I don't know how much I can say about this, but our company right now there's kind of two directions. There's this internal high performance computing, which will never be down on the cloud because it can't be because of the amount of machine learning processing that has to happen on these very highly customized nodes that have multiple GPUs. But there's the other movement in the company and most companies is to put all of their Kubernetes work into the cloud. And in our particular company, they're heading really heavily toward GCP. So what am I saying? I'm saying that I've spent a lot of time like debating all this and going through it. Hopefully it's been useful for other people to make these considerations because it's a big investment. You got to understand, up until last week, I was planning on moving and I was looking for houses that had an entire room that I could build a server room in. And I could, drop at least $8,000 on a tower. In a rack and all the rack stuff and, the Ethernet ports and all the networking and everything to have a true rack. And I still like that idea. I mean, I might do that, but that's when you do that kind of thing, you're kind of swimming in money. So yeah, take care, Taniwa. So, yeah, Cloud, you'd use the built-in management of the containers, right? You see, I don't like using the cloud because I don't want to use their stuff. I want to make my own stuff. And if I can't do that, I'm going to be pissed. So I think that that's probably the next phase for us to go in is me to go in is it rather than so I'm still going to try to build a 2-node virtual machine out of the resources that I have available on this tower of mine right here, as opposed to using Minikube, which you can't use kubeadm on at all. And I still want to do that. So that's for the rest of the day until about 3:00. That's what I'll be doing. I'll be doing that. But the next thing after that, shall $70K for blade servers to run fuzzers on. Yeah. I think at those core counts, cloud would be very expensive very quickly. Yeah, but he's running fast. He's doing fuzzers too, and fuzzers are like really CPU intensive. So yeah. So he bought the servers himself to run the fuzzers on it. Yeah. You gotta understand though, if he finds one 0-day, he just paid for every single system. He knows what he's doing. Kamoso knows what he's doing. If he finds one like really serious 0-day, that's, upwards of $1 million sometimes, and for a good one, so it'll easily pay for it. And talking about, people spend all this money on crypto mining. I'm like, you want to make good money? Spend all that money on hardware that helps you find 0-days. We're not talking about some shitty JavaScript SQL error that some pen tester script kiddie finds. We're talking about a 0-day stuff that a state actor will kill you over. This is serious shit, and that's the stuff that he finds. He finds that level of stuff. So yeah, that kind of lab is just beyond me. I think it'd be amazing. I wish I had that skill. I don't. But just staying ahead of the Kubernetes stuff, which by the way is another reason I want to do this, because I want to find errors in the different Kubernetes thing. So can I host it all on Google? I don't know. Tens of thousands of dollars. It depends on the 0-day, but yeah. Yeah. But yeah. So is it true that I'm going to bump up my Threadripper system at some point? Probably. And then that will make like multiple levels of testing, right? So, the easiest lab possible is Kind, and the second easiest lab is Minikube. And then you have your, 2 or 3 node virtual machine, kubeadm driven system on your local machine with however many cores you have, which is what I have now. And then you have, I'm just going to put the whole thing in the cloud because I need to emulate something that's got maybe, 20, 30 nodes, and I need to emulate something that's got a lot of scale, right? And at that point, you go to your own cloud provider, you go to your work and say, hey, I need this many nodes to simulate this thing. So that would be my suggestion. So I'm just gonna go for a walk for a bit, and then I'm gonna come back, and I'm gonna actually try to spin up 3 virtual machines at the same time and see if my machine doesn't crap out. And if it does, I'll just end the stream. And I still think that will be better than Minikube because I'll be able to use kubeadm and do all my installations and stuff. All right, so I'm gonna take a break. Do, 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 do. All right. So I was just talking to my wife too about some of this. I'm not gonna do Threadripper. I'm not gonna do this. I'm gonna delete it. I needed to work through it though to make some conclusions. How's it going, dude? To build a home lab for K3S. And you're setting up SFF Dell Optiplex. Give me low power consumption, x86 architecture, small footprint rack space. Using machines enough core, then up to 30 cubic SSD, just what you sense. That's really great. Thank you for giving me that feedback. I've just made a decision to go 100% cloud based on Taniwa's mentioning of that. I'm glad he did because it's been kind of bothering me in the back of my mind. I mean, if I'm completely honest, there's other things making me want a more hefty computer than Kubernetes stuff, and it's not just gaming. It's like I like having that much power in house, you know. But it's not as relevant. It's not. So building a local virtual cluster on a single computer. Decided to pursue GCP for bigger lab projects. So, yeah, I do. I love the local control too. I really do. But as long as they're just learning projects, you know, I don't know. I still have a whole bunch of old hardware that I might hold on to. I keep telling myself I'm going to set up some pen testing rigs and stuff, and I don't think I'm ever going to get to it. I just feel like I would never actually get to it. It's just going to take me. I always say that I want to do that, and then I never do it. You know. That's so I don't want to hold on to all that hardware and have it depreciate, and then I mean it's already depreciated pretty badly. I mean even if you can only get $200-300 out of it, it's better than throwing it in the trash. So yeah, for bigger lab projects. So this is kind of the thing I'm talking about. So I would say my path has been, so first was Kind, and then I did Minikube, and then I'm going to do VBox plus CubeADM, right? And then we'll put VirtualBox plus CubeADM, and then I'm going to put GCP Google Cloud, Google Platform. And I'm going to go with Google only because my business is going with Google. Again, I don't have strong preferences with any cloud provider. There's more now than when I bought it. Oh my God. It really is. They're like worth so much money, those older computers, EVGA stuff. Yeah, they really are. So this is Kate's running in container engine. And it's like Kate's running in virtual machine, a single virtual machine. And so Kate's running in, I want to say 3 virtual machines. I'm going to try to do that right now with my time. I'm going to go running. Uh, 4 plus virtual machine, virtual cloud machines. So I could do this on DigitalOcean too if I wanted. I wonder if the rates are there. I already have stuff over there. When do I plan on retiring? I already retired. I spent all my retirement money. I took a 40% penalty on it too. I started a business in my whatever. I can't retire until I'm. You can't retire until you're what, 60 something in America. I won't stop working. Linode is okay, but Linode is, I don't know. I might have to talk with Andrew again about Linode sponsorship. Is it 67 in the UK? Yeah. I don't plan on retiring. Ever. I just don't. I have no intention of retiring. And I already spent most of my retirement money. Yeah, I did. I spent tons of money starting SkillStack. And a lot of it I'm still paying for dead on, but it's fine. It was worth it because I financed my whole company all by myself, which meant that, everything that goes wrong is you get to pay for it. You can't just walk away and tell your VC partner that it sucks. Like, oh well. Yeah, I'm really glad I did it. I don't regret it for a second. But I had to take a corporate job again to kind of catch up and pay it off, and we'll have it paid down pretty soon here. But that's what's got me doing this again. I mean, that's kind of related to Learning Day. Sit at home playing with tech and then figure I could get paid to tinker. Yeah, why not? Exactly. I mean, they're not going to fire you for being old. They may not hire you because I guarantee you there's a conservative company out there that no matter how old you are and how much ageism is rampant, they will definitely hire you and they will appreciate all your skill, particularly if you keep up. I mean, everybody, the sound of my voice, you probably know somebody who hasn't kept up, and they get old and they give old people a bad name, frankly. Because why? Because they're resting on their laurels, waiting for retirement, like got the gold watch, all the old 50 shit. And then what? They suck. And they're probably really opinionated. And you know what I'm saying? And so, yeah. And so they unfortunately, they give everybody else, they give old people a bad name because, and I've worked with people like this. I'm not going to say who, but I've worked with people like this. They refuse to learn anything new. They refuse to learn any new coding languages. They refuse to learn another operating system, Linux, Schminix. I don't need no fucking Linux. I got my Solaris. I got my AIX. That's all I ever need. That's all I'm ever going to use at this job. I'm never going to use anything else. Okay, fine. And then they would rail on me for being the weird one who wanted to keep his skills up. I don't know. It wasn't exactly like that. I'm kind of not personifying it well. I mean, these are people that I love dearly, some of them. All of them, really. But they just, honestly, it was really tough to watch because they had no desire to improve their skills. Because they'd been in the job for so long and they just did not care. They didn't care. They're like, I'm going to just keep the jobs that I'm going to maintain. I'm not going to keep my nose clean. And why would you? I don't know. I have a serious problem with that because that's just not who I am. I'm always pushing the boundaries, too much so, actually. I end up pushing like too many boundaries too. Rather than focusing on one thing, I'm the guy who very easily gets distracted by multiple things that I want to learn about. Today I want to learn guitar. Today, and so keeping that focus in one direction is really important. Which is why I do these things on schedule, like this Kubernetes learning, which I think has been really, even though the ultimate conclusion was I'm not going to do a physical machine, I was really able to rubber duck that and bounce that off y'all, and I still think that's a very valid way to do it. I just don't know that it's the most cost-effective way, nor is it the most important. This is the most important for me. I don't think it's the most relevant way. It decided to produce easy for bigger lab projects, learning details of GCP, Kate's deployment, more relevant than local VMs. And that is a seriously huge conclusion I came to today. Because even though it might take a little bit more learning, different style of learning, it's not the same thing it's not localized. All the things I love about localization, I've talked about a lot. Learning to deploy the details of, of a GCP Kubernetes deployment is more relevant than a local VM, and you'll ultimately make more money. And let me give you a role play scenario I was talking about with my wife. So let's say you're working for a contractor and you're working 2 jobs or 2 different contracts, and somebody comes in and they say, okay, do you say we're a tiny company, we don't have anything on-prem, we don't have the budget for it, we don't anticipate buying it, we just want to kind of build our cluster as we go. What can you do for us? I say, well, thankfully, I already do that very thing. I maintain one or more, Google Cloud Platform providers, and I know how to pull up your Kubernetes cluster and run it in the cloud. You don't have to do anything. You just pay your baseline price and make sure you watch your costs, which is a big thing in the news right now because people are not following how much money they're wasting in Elastic by just having a bunch of nodes running with nothing happening on them. That's actually a place to make a lot of money right now. If you want to make a lot of money in cloud native, make an application that estimates the financial cost of all the nodes that are sitting without doing anything. Because there's no visibility into the cost of cloud native right now. They're starting to get it, but I tell you what, I'm telling you, if you want to make a cajillion dollars selling core software to the enterprise, kind of like SAP or Salesforce, one of those kind of companies, come up with software that calculates accurate financial, quarterly costs based on a given Kubernetes deployment and do it over time. So like monitor it over time and see what their on-site on-prem costs are so that they can make it indestructible and a good decision about whether they're using that properly versus their stuff in the cloud. With cloud, they already have that stuff because it tells them how much stuff they're using. But even in cloud, they don't really know. They don't really know if they used all that infrastructure that they deployed. They know that it's there and what it costs them, but they don't know how much processing, what was the cost, what was the capacity of all those containers or all those nodes that was running? What capacity were they running at? Were they running at max capacity, 20% capacity? And how much could we have not paid if we had decided to scale back? So these decisions about scaling the infrastructure, the whole point of orchestration and elastic computing, they're all getting defeated right now by the complexity because they don't have visibility into how much it all costs. I'm telling you, if you want to make a killing, make an application that helps enterprises estimate their cloud computing costs. And I'm telling you, they will pay whatever you... The prices stack so fast in the cloud and idle servers, admins don't know, and they don't have the talking knowledge. Lots of variables in the landscape shifting fast. And that's the problem. The reason this doesn't exist yet is because the landscape is moving too fast. This is what I'm saying. If you created a company that has like world-class 100x coders and that also have deep core infrastructure knowledge, you make that you could do it as an open core business model and you could get that probably fast tracked in the cloud native board because that stuff doesn't exist. Tanya, when he comes back, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but that stuff doesn't exist. And so you got a lot of technical people and you got pointy hair. You got this disconnect between the guy in the taupe blazer, which is a reference to if you haven't read The Man in the Taupe Blazer, it's a long Bloomberg piece. It's really about the IT guy who comes in and says, you need this and this and this. And he's just like throwing money around like crazy. And it's about this conservative money manager who has the purse strings, who's feeling kind of, attacked because he can't handle it. He doesn't have a sense of where's this money going and how is it being spent. And that's just with traditional IT. That's not even cloud native. And then you talk cloud native and there's even more magic going on. It's like, what am I actually paying for here? What is the return on value? And in my particular case, the clusters that they're using, there's a lot of return on value because they're doing model crunching and stuff with it that's providing direct value to the core business, which is good. But I imagine there's a lot of companies out there that are like, what am I going to get? And being able to answer that question is going to be really valuable. In fact, if you want to make even more money, you make that software and you don't open source it, and then you start a consulting company. And you say, our job is helping you calculate your costs over time. And they will hire you as a consultant to come in and help them get a handle on their costs. And the CFOs will throw money at you. They will throw money at you. Do I have a link for the tall man? I I don't know what you're talking about. Oh man, explaining cloud native costs is a job by itself. Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. If you want to be a CFO, if you God, you want to get a degree that you will just rake the fucking money in. Get an accounting degree. All right. So get like a traditional MBA or accounting degree or something like that. And then get some experience doing finance for an IT company, and then supplement it with the cost of IT infrastructure in the cloud, so that you, not only are you an accountant now you're a financial auditor who focuses in cloud native deployments and cloud deployment. If you can create yourself a career doing financial consulting for enterprise clients, specifically about getting a handle on cloud costs right now, you could name your fucking price, $300 an hour, whatever you want. They will pay it. If you can prove you can do it, because nobody has a handle on this. No one. It's like, it's in the books and blogs and magazines all over the place. They're all talking about how nobody has any sense of what cloud actually costs. And that's a pretty common thing right now. So there you go. If you get a job doing that, please let me know. But if you like that angle of the company, if you like finance and you like, those things, and you also like tech enough to dabble in it, but you don't want to do it all day, every day. Good job right there. You went through a paper exercise with one of the cloud companies to migrate your on-prem into cloud. It was forecast we would be bankrupt within 6 months. That's exactly what I'm talking about. See, people think this is kind of related to what we've been talking about today. We've been talking about money a lot today, because I've been trying to decide, just as an engineer, where should I invest my money in terms of learning and growth and all of that? And is it going to be better spent in a $7,000 32 core Threadripper, kick-ass machine that I run locally and split up? Or is it going to be run better over spending that money over time from a cloud provider and learning the skills of a cloud provider? So if you have to get a handle on money, even if as an engineer, you got to know this stuff. So yeah, you're going through the same exercise of going to cloud, but moving everything to Linux-based hosts on Windows kills you. As Windows, Linux-based hosts as Windows. Interesting. Huh. Yeah, I'd love to hear that. Licensing costs. Oh, shit. You must be moving to Azure. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Were you the one who was talking about getting off Microsoft SQL Server and getting onto Postgres? Yeah, the Azure people were like, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't get a good taste in my mouth with Azure so far, but I've heard people love it. Azure makes a lot of sense if your entire enterprise is already Microsoft. If you're already a Microsoft shop. If you're already a Microsoft shop, then Azure's going to cut you all kinds of deals as an enterprise, right? If you are greenfielding stuff, I would never go Azure as a greenfield option. I wouldn't, unless you had some like real obsession in your company on Windows. Well, I don't know. I mean, Windows and cloud doesn't mix, yes, but Azure's technically, what's it, 70% Linux? I mean, Sanju came over there and started running Microsoft. He's done a lot of good things over there. And one of them is getting them off of Windows. You have legacy software that's based on Windows Realm. Yeah. Yeah, that's tough, man. I trust Azure folks in the cloud. Yeah, there are, I don't know, man. I mean, I don't trust the Amazon people either. I mean, I've heard secondhand from an executive of a story that Amazon, I can't prove any of this, that there was an Amazon person who was regularly going through their customers' private deployments to get ideas for their internal deployment, and it was never hitting the public or anything. And that this is secondhand. This is hearsay of hearsay, so it could be completely false. But if there's any relevance to it all to that, then centralization of our cloud infrastructure is already a bad idea. That's the thing. The reason that I am so pro on-prem is because I want to promote the idea of people building on-prem. I want to promote that. I want to promote that over the cloud. But God, you know what? I totally forgot about that as a priority. That's actually one of my driving priorities above this whole thing is I want to help people build on-prem clouds. Maybe I don't have to abandon the old hardware I have, and I can actually put that together. Yeah, and then I'll do I'm gonna do bare metal on-prem. Bare metal plus QADM. I still want to do this. I just don't have the time and area and literally the power to do it right now because I'm in an apartment. If I plug all those computers in, it'll pop the circuit, I'm sure. So, and guess who we went with? Who did you go with? Hello there.
Hi.
What are you doing there?
I think I put the extra toothpaste in your room.
The toothpaste is in my room.
The extra one?
I think you did.
Supposed to be
Yeah.
empty on yours.
GCP, just a better product overall. You like it better than AWS? Well, Funkman, I really trust your opinion. You have a really strong technical background that I agree with. So to hear you say that makes me feel a lot better. You've had a lot of GCP success so far. AWS Outpost is a fully managed service that offers the same AWS infrastructure, AWS services, APIs, and tools to virtually any data set or co-location space or on-prem faculty. Cool. I mean, I'm not against AWS either. I want everybody to understand. I have no strong opinion about cloud provider at this point. So I want anybody to feel like I'm, team Google here. The truth is I'm actually glad you reminded me of that. Minded of personal priority to promote on-prem. I think I want to promote more on-prem and less dependency on the cloud, because if all of our IT is being provided by 3 cloud providers, the world is going to be in a bad place, man. We're going to be in a bad place. And I don't want to live in that world. I don't. So yeah. We just bought some AWS Outpost racks to align our cloud stuff with on-prem. Really? Oh, you bought the racks to put them inside. You know what? That's what Oxide's trying to do, I have a feeling. I think Oxide Computing's trying to do the Outpost racks. Yeah. They have Outpost racks. I didn't know about that. I don't think I knew about that. Learned about... You know what? That is brilliant. That is fucking brilliant for them to do that. That's for them to do that. That is brilliant. That is really, really intelligent, because they're going to get all the hybrid business if they keep doing that. Yeah. For GCP. Yeah. How's it going with Outposts? They just delivered to Colorado and Denver. Is that a relatively new thing? That's pretty fucking amazing. I gotta tell you that. Oh, I just changed it. Yeah. Yeah, I just changed it. Hey, 1 minute spectrum. What's fucking amazing? The fact that Amazon has responded so quickly to the on-prem movement and the hybrid thing by having an offering. How long has the Outpost been around? When did AWS Outposts start? I mean, let's read their docs here. Oh God. Yeah. Oh my God, look at this. К сожалению, данный материал на выбранном языке недоступен. Мы постоянно работаем над разрешением контента, предоставленного пользователю на выбранном языке. Благодарим вас за терпение. Thank you for your patience, but we currently don't support the language that you are trying to display in. It thinks I'm trying to watch this page in Russian. So it told me that we don't support Russian yet, but we're going to work on it. Ну почему? You didn't know that я говорю по-русски? That's the first time? Ну, здравствуйте. А вы тоже говорите по-русски, что ли? I was Jess and the guys at Oxide. I think they finally released their first rack. Yeah. No, there's кто-то другого. What the fuck, you know Russian? А кто здесь еще говорит по-русски? Скажите. Печатаю тоже на русском. На русские клавиши. Да. Да, это я из-за того, что у меня несколько... Я закончил университет на русском факультете, потом работал в России несколько лет. Занимался директором круизов по Волге. По Волге плавали, все. Знаете, что такое речной вокзал? Такие речной речь. Речной fluent. Я говорю по-русски. Ну ладно. Isn't Russian the only one more complicated? No. It's got 9 declensions, and every fucking word declines when you change the tense or voice. It's fucking insane. You just have to memorize it. It's kind of hard, actually. Not as bad as Chinese. I tried to go back. I'd already been 6 years in college, and I tried to go back and say, can I take another 2 years? I want to learn Chinese now. And they said no. You need to go now and make a place for someone else. Like, but I really wish I had to. I had a chance. It just pisses me off so bad. I had a chance to cruise on the Yangtze River before they dammed it, and I didn't get in on that cruise. I was so pissed. I wish I had the money to pay for that one. They didn't let me on it. They let me on all of the cruises, but not that one. And I was like, oh. They damned, the Chinese dammed the Yangtze, and they destroyed like ancient hieroglyph. I mean everything. Tons of like history just got covered in water immediately forever. It's so, the Chinese don't give a shit about history. They don't. In fact, they actively try to destroy nostalgia and old history. I guess that's a political statement, but it's true. They constantly try to pave over history and rewrite it because they want to live in the future and stuff. And it really sucks because there's some ancient, really amazing Chinese history. And my stepson's Chinese, but I don't know anything as much as I should. Anyway, they told me I couldn't come back to college either. Apparently, if you don't pay, they won't let you go. I speak Japanese, but it's easy. Chinese, I couldn't handle the tones. Yeah, it's Chinese is crazy. Yeah, it is hard. Outposts. Contact sales. Give us an outpost. I'm going to watch this.
Companies are rapidly...
I have nothing to do with Amazon. Do not think that I'm advertising for them. But if somebody can pique my interest, then I'll get inadvertent advertising here. That's just how I work.
adopting the cloud for agility and lower costs. However, some workloads need to remain on-premise.
I got to tell you something, though. Amazon can really knock it out of the park when it comes to technical video. The video that they did for Lambda, I still love that video.
Due to low latency or local data processing needs. Instead of using different development and operating models for on-premises and cloud workloads, what if developers can use the same services?
I love that they continue to use this defunct XML, HTML thing here. They always do this. If you want to piss off any developer who doesn't do shitty XML development, make that represent them as a developer.
And APIs they use in the cloud to develop applications on premises. And what if IT can use the same tools to manage and operate IT resources across on-premises and cloud? AWS Outposts bring AWS infrastructure, services, APIs, and tools to any on-premises facility with reliable network connectivity for a truly consistent hybrid experience. Customers have told us they would use Outposts for a range of use cases. To get started with AWS Outposts, you order from a range of fully integrated and pre-validated Outpost configurations best suited for your use case and facilities. You can choose from a variety of EC2 instance types with and without local storage options, as well as EBS SSD general purpose volumes. AWS certified personnel deliver and install your Outpost rack in your facility and connect it to power and network you provide. Connect your Outpost to the nearest AWS region using AWS Direct Connect or VPN. For low latency access to on-premises resources, you can create a local gateway to connect your Outpost to your local networks. Seamlessly extend your VPC by creating a subnet
from a business
and associating it with
perspective,
your
this
Outpost.
is fucking
Instances in your
genius.
Outpost can securely talk to other instances in your VPC through private IP addresses. Launch EC2 instances and run your applications on Outposts using the same AWS console, CLI, or SDKs as in the cloud. You can also run a range of AWS services locally on Outposts. You can access regional AWS services using public service endpoints or by using Private Link to connect your VPC to these services via private endpoints. Outposts are fully
they don't call it a VPN anymore. It's VPC, Virtual Private Cloud. Yeah.
managed and supported by
It's
AWS,
like the new buzzword.
removing the overhead of updating and patching software, maintaining hardware, or calling multiple vendors for support. You can leverage a broad range of AWS partner network partners to support installation and maintenance, cloud migration scenarios,
Dude.
or for networking, storage.
Dude, they're fucking commoditizing the cloud. You gotta give them credit. Amazon has kicked ass at commoditization. That's what they've been doing. This is why Bezos wants to fucking buy the roads. He got shut down. He was very seriously trying to buy the roads, the actual roads, because he wanted to control the infrastructure. He wanted to commoditize everything, and he's just done it. Now he's commoditized at AWS on-prem, which is like. This is like IT in a box. If they pull this off,
and security solutions for
This
your
is like-
Outpost. AWS
this
secures
is
your Outpost
huge.
just as it secures infrastructure
more money, give us all your money. Let's make it. Yeah.
in the cloud today. Customers are responsible for the security of their applications running on the Outpost.
You're responsible for your own security. You notice they're making sure to say that. Bezos, I don't know, man. Bezos
And
is
for the physical security of
Bezos is he's a complex character. I mean, he's a complex character. Do I like him? No, right? But I
the
don't know.
Outpost rack. With AWS Outposts, customers can extend the
Wait, is this the same one? Have we already watched this?
AWS experience on premises for a truly consistent hybrid cloud experience.
Yeah, so this is the thing that Amazon just kicks ass is delivering. They see where stuff's going and then they turn shit around really fast. I don't know how they do it. I mean, they invented microservices. Bezos invented microservices. I mean, it was kind of a thing before, but it didn't have a name and it hadn't been forced upon an entire enterprise. And so Bezos comes along and he's like, no, this is how it's going to be from now on. And think about this for a second. The entire enterprise IT industry is now built on a concept that Bezos forced his company to do in 2007 or something. So I can't overstate how fast they are able to deliver on stuff that has value. I mean, they just turn it around. And the fact that it's just kind of sad because I have a feeling this is what Oxide was trying to do. I think Oxide Computing was trying to do that, and I think they got beat, honestly. I don't think they're going to be able to keep up with that shit. They're probably going to get bought. Amazon or somebody like them would buy it. Yeah. Oh, there's pictures. Is that actually the company? Yep, that is. It's Oxide. I mean, it's a kind of their own bootstrap company and everything. Yeah. It's too bad because they could have, yeah, hardware with the software baked in, infrastructure scale, shipping early 2020. You see these things; these are so beautiful. These computers, hardware with the software baked in. I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting, but this whole on-prem stuff is like 100% open source. Yeah, yeah, I know. It's going to be crazy. Yeah, I wish I could buy one. I'm watching them like a hawk because so much of their stuff runs on Rust. Those Rust APIs. They're probably the most significant company to really get behind Rust, period. And I'm watching them because I want to see if they succeed, it will be a real solid win for Rust. And maybe it'll be time for me to finally learn it. But the way things are right now, Go is by far the winner in the cloud space. Go is not even an option. If you don't know Go, forget it. You can't be an engineer in the cloud space without learning Go. End of story. You can't. Not a true systems engineer, systems developer. You can't even make a Helm chart without knowing Go. So, yeah. Permanent solution to cloud services. It's good if you are starting up, yeah. But having them milk you every month forever is insane. That's yeah. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get their on-prem hooks into you. Because now you have a hardware there that you can't replace easily, right? I mean, there's the whole question about putting their hardware in your private network. I mean, I gave up on OpenStack a while ago. I was following OpenStack pretty closely. I had an OpenStack account and everything. I finally had to get rid of it. I actually had kind of a falling out. I wrote a blog about it and everything, and I actually had one of their customer service people call me, and we talked about it because it was ugly. I'm not a fan lately. I don't know. We'll see where it goes. I haven't checked into OpenStack in a long time. Operating costs versus hardware costs, right? Yep. Like turning racks into iPhones, the service replaced without them. Exactly. I don't know if they're turning racks into iPhones. I know. That's the next thing, though, right? They're commoditizing. It's like you don't own that book that you bought. You bought a license to watch it. You don't own that movie that you bought. You bought a license to watch it permanently with us. You don't own that iPhone that you bought. You can't edit it or do anything to it, or you're going to lose all your ability to do this. The commoditization of subscription services and stuff, and is the new way for businesses to get really solid hooks into you. So, yeah, everybody's doing it. So if they can, these outpost things that AWS is doing and the Oxide computing sort of thing, I don't know if it's the same. We don't know. Nobody knows. But if they can get you to buy their hardware as if you're buying an iPhone and putting it on-prem and say, you can run all your own apps and everything on here, but you can't mess with the hardware. The hardware is not yours. We own the hardware. We own the hardware. We have a license over the hardware. We're required to have access to our hardware to fix it in order to come in and check in and all that stuff. But you can run whatever you want. You can run your apps on it. It's absolutely the same thing. It's absolutely selling you an iPhone into your IT shop. That's what it is. Yeah, local cheap setup. Yeah. I like promoting on-prem non-dependency on the cloud. Not because I hate cloud providers, but because I don't think it's good for the world. I don't think it's good for the world. When you start asking yourself, what if everybody did it, right? The whole moral imperative question. What if everybody did it? If everybody picked from Amazon Azure or Google, we'll be fucked. We'd be fucked. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something here. Maybe there's some. You can't change the OS either because the license is the hardware OS. I absolutely guarantee that they. I don't guarantee, but I agree. I agree. I agree that they can't change the license. I agree that the license is probably really locked down because they're going to be responsible for security. But you see, even in their presentation, they said you were responsible for security of your system. This is going to get really interesting. Legally, it's going to get really fucking interesting because now you're going to have Outpost people saying, okay, you have to make sure everything running on here is secure. And then there's going to be some hardware vulnerability, and that's going to force the company to be vulnerable. And who do they go to? Who do they go to for that shit? Like if they find a hardware vulnerability or something, a misconfiguration in the provider that causes their whole entire enterprise to be exposed by the fact that their thing, or if worse, they do it on purpose because they want to spy on you. Worse things have been done. Then you have low operating costs using AWS is perfect for you. Yeah. Our business doesn't depend on being hardware experts, so it makes no sense to depend on the hardware. Yeah, and there's a lot. That's most companies, Porsche. I would agree. That's why I'm saying I think it's brilliant that they're doing it. This is gonna sound horrible. I don't mean it to. Companies are getting stupider. They are. Companies are getting dumber. They're like, and IT wise. And there's another way to say that. There's another way to personify that. You could say they're not dumber. They're just more focused on their goals, their business goals, right? And so they just want turnkey IT products. They don't give a shit. This is why Microsoft is still king in the enterprise, because Microsoft has made a business model of selling just enough IT to get the job done so that the people getting work done don't have to think about the IT. At least that's the idea. And they've successfully sold tons of. IBM used to be the same way. You can't ever be fired for buying IBM. IBM used to be the same way. That was a saying in the 50s and 60s. No one's ever been fired for buying IBM because it's just so reliable, and that somebody else takes care of all the hassle and everything. So the argument goes. The old argument, I would say, goes like this. It's like, we have a business, we sell hats, right, or whatever. We don't care about how our IT works. We just want it to work. We want to sell it. So, service is a service sort of thing, right? We just want to sell. They don't care. They don't care about the IT, and they shouldn't have to care. And that idea works to a degree, but you're starting to see companies like Tesla. So Tesla, the client is getting dumber too, absolutely. But are they getting more? So here's the question: are they getting dumber, or are they just getting more specialized? You know what I'm saying? Right. I don't know if it's dumber or lazy is probably the wrong word, right? But I think the most non-pejorative way we could say it would be they're more specialized. So I want to sell hats. I don't care about how I sell hats. I just want to sell hats. And so when that happens, all of the other stuff, they don't care. The more turnkey it is, the better. And so they look over at Amazon. I mean, come on. I just want to make a phone call, right? The same sort of thing happened. We didn't get lazy because we got iPhones and Android phones and smartphones. That didn't make us lazier. It made us more specialized. So we could do, for example, I don't have to remember phone numbers anymore. I could just look at somebody's phone. The point is that the specialization is allowing companies like Amazon to profit off of making iPhones for the enterprise, basically. I mean, I know that's a stretch, but that's what it's like. And Oxite's trying to do the same thing for computers. Like, here's your software and your hardware all in one shot. Buy this rack and you're done, right? And that kind of thing is going to be appealing to more and more smaller companies, assuming the economy lets smaller companies flourish again. So far, it hasn't. Fangs are blinded by their own strategies. They really are. Yeah, sometimes I really think they are. They're pretty big and bulky, but they are pretty. To Amazon's credit, I'll tell you one thing: when they have an idea, they execute fast. I mean, having worked at IBM and watched some of the other IT industry for a while, and there's something about Amazon. Like, you'll hear about on-prem or hybrid cloud being hot, and boom, within a month they have outposts. They just pulled it out of their ass and said, okay, we're going to do this. And they act in the moment when there's a hot interest in a particular thing, for better or worse, right? I think that's really cool. I do. I'm not going to lie. I think that their ability to act, I mean, you could argue that Bezos has been doing that since the beginning. He's like, there's not a good way to buy a book online. A good way. There were lots of ways. There were lots of little shops out there, but there wasn't a good way. And so he says, and he delivered. He delivered before everybody else. A bunch of Perl CGI scripts. I almost worked for the company back then. They were literally up the street for me, like, 30 miles up the street, but a while. Don't worry. I need to care how it works. Yeah. Yeah. Good engineers care. The engineers care, but yeah, the problem is that this you get this problem all the time. If you want to play in the CTO space or the COO and all of that place, you can't think like an engineer. You gotta stop thinking like an engineer. Because and by the way, this doesn't just go for people who aspire to be in those positions. This goes for engineers who want to stay engineers. If you continue to talk like an engineer and talk to executives like they should understand why you want to build it on-prem, and you haven't backed up and tried to understand the business goals involved, you'll get shot down every time. And then they'll just be a fucking annoyance and they won't trust you. But if you can demonstrate as an engineer that you actually have the company's bottom line as a priority, that yes, you could build the whole thing, but that might not be the best thing for long-term support, then you'll do better. Even as a web developer, I used to do this all the time. I would help out people as an independent web developer for a while, and I would do things, and I'd have friends come to me and they would say, hey, I want to make this website. Can you make it for me? And I'm like, yes, but what happens after this? Well, I want to be able to go in and change it and do this thing. Okay. You don't want me to make you a website. You want me to start you out on a WordPress site and then teach you how to modify it. Oh yeah. That's what I want. If I had just turned over some complicated Node app to them and said, well, now we want to add something to our schedule, and say, oh, I'm sorry, it's going to cost you extra money and I don't do that anymore. What? So you suggesting to my friend that and building them a WordPress site was like against every fiber of my being. I fucking hate it, but it was the right thing for them. And so that's tough. That is really, really hard. That is really hard. You have to be a good communicator in a position. Yeah, totally, Professor. Completely agree. Yeah, you've got to be able to like pave the where it's actually a place that I think that I would probably do well in. I just don't want to work there. The whole communicating and translating and smoothing the waters. I'm just too much of a hothead. I can't do it. I don't think I can do it. I sometimes I want to, but yeah, learning to do that stuff. It gets me in trouble though, because other engineers hate me sometimes. They don't hate me, but other engineers get annoyed because I'm like, it's really not that fast. It actually takes more time than you suggest. And they're like, no, it's just a couple of things. It can take 30 minutes. It's fine. I'm like, no, it doesn't take 30 minutes. Have you taken into account the training of everybody on the team who has to support this thing? Have you taken into account the delivery of the thing with its like integration? How about the documentation thing? Well, yeah, but that's, we can do that later. No. You can't consider the task complete until you've delivered the whole fucking thing to the team. You've added value in a sustainable way. If you haven't done that, it's not fucking done. Stop telling me it only takes you 5 or 10 minutes here and there to just put a few things together and anybody should be able to do it. It's really easy. I'm so sick of that shit as an engineer because I have to fight against that all the time. And they're like, oh yeah, of course, you don't think it's done until it's got 5 pages of documentation. And if you communicated with everybody about the implications of who's going to be using it, and you've made sure to put a rally ticket in and close it out properly. Yeah. It's like if you're, okay, if you're going to be you about it, then I guess it's not done, but I just finished it. So I don't know what your problem is. And if you've been around the block long enough, I'll say this. I err on the other side. Dude, I've had this experience my whole fucking career. My whole fucking career has been raising boiling the water or raising Cain because somebody is trying to get some shit that's insecure out the door and putting us all at risk. And there's a scene in Mr. Robot that I really love. It's fictional, but there's a scene in Mr. Robot where they locked him in the refrigerator or something because the guy kept finding errors, and his job was to find errors. He kept finding errors too good. And they all wanted to go home for the weekend. He was like, there's still an error. No offense here, but there's still an error. And they eventually shut him up and stuck him in the closet and left him. It's a scene. It's a scene for Mr. It's not a scene. It's a memory he has. And that's the kind of memory I have. I tend to find problems with shit or other ways of doing it. Sometimes I need more time because I need to understand it because I'm not as smart as a lot of these other engineers who think it's all finished in 10 minutes. And so I ask questions about how things are working, what are the implications and things like that. And these are not things that they value. So they get annoyed. They get annoyed. Or my manager gets annoyed. I've had my manager just go off on me once in a call because I brought up a major security flaw in some software that I had reported in every possible way through email and otherwise privately, and they decided to skip over it. Does anybody have anything else before we deploy it? Well, there's that one error there. He fucking yelled at me on this call. He's a piece of shit. He's a piece of shit manager. Worst manager I ever had. I wish I could have left right there. In fact, because of him, I actively pursued immediately that day. I started interviewing with everybody else. I wrote him a huge letter I never sent to him. Don't always send those letters, by the way. And then I got busy. I didn't get mad. I got busy. And I started looking that day. That day I got my resume ready and I started looking at everything and I realized that my skills were in the toilet because I had just been doing C debugging and pointer, overflows and stuff like that. And I was like, man, I got to add back a bunch of other skills. And that's where Skill Stack came from. And then from that, I ended up starting my own company and then went on with it. So, but I'm getting a little bit now because we're back into enterprise land. And so, yeah. What happened to your meme collection for movies? I still have it. It's a dude named Ben. No one remembers. Dude named Ben. What is this? Is this one I can download? I mean, we can go find it. That's a CPAN video. Am I going to regret this? Oh, God.
Interacted with Mr. Werfel quite a lot.
Okay, Mr. Werfel. Who else?
Mr. Wilkins was the chief counsel, and I interacted with him.
We assume that. Those are the people you reported to. I want to talk about who reported to you. Name some people that reported to you.
I think that the best way to do it is to...
I know, but you're here in front of Congress. You knew this was going to happen. Name one person that you interacted with.
I interact with a lot of people.
I know you did a lot of people. Name somebody.
Who I interacted with.
Yes.
The deputy chief counsel, Chris Sterner.
Chris Sterner. Anybody in the IT arena?
I didn't actually interact directly with people in the IT arena. There was somebody whose name was, I can't even remember his last name. I think his first name may have been Ben.
So a guy named Ben, a dude named Ben. Who else?
Chavez, he's kind of an asshole. He actually stepped down after he was supposed to be over the House Ethics Committee. Yeah, he's a Republican from Utah. He was actually my ex-girlfriend, who's Salt Lake Tribune editor for a while before she stepped down. Long time ago. She's from high school. His girlfriend from high school. Jen Napier. She used to hang out with this dude. But he's not doing politics at all anymore. He got out of it. He got out of it under the Trump administration. It's the whole Moab. Yeah, Provo Moab. I was actually
to recreate it. I mean,
can you name even one person that
do you see the district he represents?
Even one person that you interacted with?
The district, the Provo Moab. Moab's where I learned a river guide, and that's where you go mountain biking stuff. Provo's where my Mormon pilgrim ancestors, whatever you want to call them, Mormon pioneer ancestors. That's where they settled. They actually owned a lot of the land where the university was. We never saw any of that money though. Yeah, but so yeah, that's like, it's funny to see that. But yeah, it's like people are so clueless. They don't know. So yeah, I kind of ranted a little bit more than usual on that, but I just cannot say it more you have to think of the benefit for the whole company, right? Ignorance could lose the company millions. Ignorance is not bliss. Yeah. If I had $1 every time someone found a vulnerability, but the superior said, yeah, but nobody would actually ever do that. Until they do. That's artification, by the way. That's why I think security people, bounty hunters, are going to be in business for a long time. It's always cheaper to pay somebody who found a problem than to pay somebody full-time on staff whose job it is to find problems proactively. It's always going to be cheaper. It's damage control. It's damage control, and it's always going to be cheaper to pay, even if they pay you $20,000 to find one stupid ass SQL injection error. They'll still pay that because that person they would have hired to find that error, they would have had to pay that person 80 to 120 grand a year and they may have never even found it. There is no QA team anymore. That's the other thing. All the CI/CD, everybody's getting rid of their QA teams completely. It's insane. The movement, it's one of the reasons that I'm not such a fan of CI/CD, because it's getting abused all the time. So anyway, never mind. Let the customer find it for us. Yeah. How could they rob us? It's a lot cheaper for how did they rob us? Absolutely. So they set aside, there's actually a scene of Mr. Robot too, where Terry Colby, is sitting down in Angela's house. You know who Angela is, the blonde. He's going after she's like totally attacked him and take him down and everything. He comes back to try to recruit her to work at Ecor. And he says to her, you don't understand. He's like, but you're going to lose a lot of money. He goes, yeah, it's a lot of money. But then he says, but when that happened, we set aside a rainy day fund, and that fund has already earned 10 times that amount. So they don't care about killing the people because they can pay them off. That same kind of logic goes for why I think bug bounty people are going to be in a job forever, because there's always going to be money set aside for damage control on that kind of shit, more than there is to proactively do anything. Humans are not proactive. We do not prepare for things. We don't save for rainy days. We might think we're going to and buy lots of exercise equipment, never use it, and all the other things, but we just don't do that. And it's particularly at the corporate level where there's cash involved. Because you're going to have to re-justify your 120K a year existence as a security person when you have to say, well, how many bugs did you find last year? Well, none, but I set up all of these things so that we wouldn't have them, and blah, blah, blah. So you can't really put a dollar figure on your value as a security person, because there's nothing to measure. There's like, how many systems did you put in place, and stuff like that. But when you're talking to corporate finance people, when they say, this person found this bug, which was worth $20,000, and this other person found 10 bugs worth, 10K each, let's compare. They're better. This person is they do more for our company than this other person. Because if you're getting on a salary, then you're not motivated. It's the whole what is it? The whole gig economy, right? So pen testing is 100% gig economy. It's like, I don't pay you. I don't have to pay your insurance. I don't have to pay anything. I just pay you money if you find something. The gig economy is kind of kicking in many different ways. It's going to be interesting to see how that affects everybody. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Let's see. I'd say people do QA as a service. Lots of companies just focus on doing QA. Yeah, that's true. And security, and you pay them. They come back and list the bugs and holes. Yeah, that's more today. That's pretty much the security firm these days, right? Yeah. Yeah. When you're being paid to find a problem, you're more inclined to find a problem. I think it sucks about that is if you have a QA person on your development team, their job is to find problems in your shit. And it's like giving quotas to cops, which is not a good idea. Don't give cops quotas, man. You've got to bring in X number of people every month or you're not doing your job. Well, what if no one's doing any crime this month? Doesn't matter. Find somebody. It's a bad idea. It's hard to work with a QA person whose job it is to find something you do wrong. Because what if you do everything right? Then they're like starting to nitpick at stuff because they're like digging and picking the scab and everything, trying to find something that's bad. There's nothing there. And then you end up this. It's good to have, if you have a QA person on your software development team, you should respect them. It's also a great job if you want to get into IT and software development, because you have to study all the other code and see if it's good or not and learn about it, whether it's good or not. Many companies do not fix holes which are 10 to 12 years old, publicly known, not even talking about the 0 days. Yeah, absolutely. Well, yes, they do that. I simply mean you outsource this aspect of development. I said everything is specializing. I do. I think everything is specializing. I think that's really what it's going. That's not a bad thing, but it is something to watch, I guess. And I am over time, and I need to go run. I'm just going to recap some of the discoveries for today. I'm going to do another one of these tomorrow afternoon. I'm going to put it on the calendar because I want to still do the basic part. So watch my calendar on RBX Rob, Twitch, / schedule. Tomorrow I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to be building a virtual box in CubeADM, in 3 virtual machines that I'm going to carve out on this computer of mine, see if I can do it, not crash. That's what I wanted to do today. I went into the day thinking I might want to spec a new computer and do it that way. I've come out of it the day having concluded that my next phase is going to be in the cloud. But I have a phase before. So between Minikube and the cloud is virtual machines, and I'm going to try that. And then we're going to see how much of that I can do on hopefully 2 VMs. If not, I can just do it on 2 VMs and see how much we can do there, just to understand all the commands like the CubeADM command and stuff like that. So, and then probably next week, I'm going to start stepping into the GCP cloud stuff and deploy environments that way. And then we'll be back into more, traditional studying for everything. Here's a chat message. Probably the reason why so much software is open source nowadays is because it's way cheaper to let others find and fix the bugs. Also, let others come up with ideas instead of your own team. Yeah, the open core model works. It just works across the board. And many of the same reasons that it works are the same reasons that doing a co-working stream works, because you're leveraging the community even though you have vested personal interest in it, and you can compete on other fronts. That's the really great thing about open core and open source, is that people are realizing that the infrastructure is not a part of their core. Unless you're Amazon, it's not a part of their core offering and what they're making money on. So I can share ideas about how to improvise and make Jupyter better without losing, a competitive edge there, because we're using it to do different things. So I do like that aspect of open source and open core in general. What do I think about Copilot? I've been asked about that a lot. I actually made a video on it. I think Copilot is a fundamental violation of open source law, and I think it just hasn't been tested in court yet. It will be. No enterprise on planet Earth would use Copilot to make software. In fact, they would go, any company that has a significant legal team will never let Copilot be used internally on any project with any proprietary software of any kind. Because just using it once with its dirty legal pedigree would prevent the legal team from approving that project, period. And that's not something people consider, but they don't understand that entire legal teams have to vouch for every piece of pedigree in the open source pedigree. That's one of the reasons that Node sucks so bad, because it's got such a complex, convoluted pedigree with so many of these unfinished, shitty projects out there. I can't believe anybody puts Node in the enterprise. It just makes me nuts that they do. But true companies need to understand. If you're going to go into this thing, you need to understand that you have got to be able to have. There's companies who make their entire business is proving the pedigree of open source projects, so that if you have those open source projects, when you're being audited for your final delivery before you sell the thing, that you're not going to get surprised by somebody's going to say, you got this open source, now you have to at least the whole thing is open, even though Apple pulls it off all the time, but that so they won't pay. So if you considering that environment of strictness, no. Well, we got this new thing we use that helps us write things without knowing where it comes from. Where does the software come from? Well, it's this combined total of like tons and tons of software that's been out there all over the place, and it just kind of gets you the right thing. It's like, well, you have no idea where the software came from. Well, it came from everywhere and yet kind of nowhere at the same time. fuck no. That is my official professional response legally to your request to use Copilot on this project. There's no way. It's kind of a fun little experiment, but it has no practical application whatsoever at all. Like with a capital, for every letter. It's just totally stupid. I have to go. I'm going to go do my running. I'll put the fishies back on. I am away. I'm going to go running and back later for stuff. Probably gaming and just chatting. Maybe I'll have the motivation to do a little bit more coding or hacking or something. But right now I can't answer that question. I can never answer the question until I go running, and then I know when I get back. So guys, go outside. Everybody go outside, get some air, get some sun. And